For the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Sean, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes. And then I would like to consider a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I so move.
I'll second.
Thank you. Sean, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes. We'll move on to the opportunity for public comment. If there's anyone in the audience wishing to address the board, you can come on up right now. Good morning, Tony.
Hi, I have a quorum question. Anthony James Ventura, 47763 292nd Street. On item 15, are we going to be able to have public comment? Or
On
should I read
item-
my speech now?
On item 15,
Yes.
well, public comment, this part of it is for items that are not on the agenda.
So are you going to let us
So-
speak on 15?
I think we can allow some limited speaking on that item. Yeah,
Thank you.
you bet. Anybody else have a comment they'd like to make? If not, we'll move on to item 1. Well, I guess we got commissioner reports. Anybody have a commissioner report?
No, Madam Chair.
Just a reminder that we have our 4-H pork barbecue tonight, so everybody can come out and see what the new facility looks like and all the hard work that the 4-H kids have done.
All right. Anybody else? If not, we'll go ahead and move on to regular business and item 1 on our agenda.
This is a public hearing and second reading for an ordinance of Lincoln County, South Dakota, rezoning the property legally described as Lot 3, Hoffman's Addition, southwest quarter of the southwest quarter, Section 31, Township 100 North, Right 50 West from the A1 Agricultural District to the I1 Light Industrial District, and amending the official zoning map of Lincoln County. Location is 27284 470th Avenue.
Good morning. Toby Brown, representing County Planning. As was just mentioned, good morning again. Toby Brown with County Planning representing. Again, as just described, this is an application from Dennis Verhey to rezone a parcel approximately 2 acres in size. This property is approximately 1,700 feet to the south of the city of T. The applicant, again, is requesting to change the zoning of the parcel from the A1 Agricultural District to the I1 Light Industrial District. The applicant did submit a concept plan with the application. The applicant intends to construct a contractor's shop on the property. The applicant owns a fencing company and will utilize the building for that purpose. If approved, the building would require a conditional use permit, which would have to go before the Planning Commission. At that time, the Planning Commission would consider any buffering or screening requirements or any other requirements that would be required. As far as the staff analysis, this property, as you can see, is listed as an urban expansion area for the city of T. The city of T, staff has consulted with the city of T. The city of T has identified this property as a future employment center. And as such, the proposed application would be in conformance with the application. As mentioned, the Planning Commission did consider this application, did recommend unanimously approval of it. At that time, there was no one that spoke in opposition to the application. The applicant as well told that he had visited with the neighbors in the area and that there wasn't any objection to that. Subsequent to that, and within the last day or so, I've discussed with a number of property owners within the vicinity. They do have some concerns with the application and with the proposal as presented. As you can see, this area is a mixture of land uses. There is some existing commercial development, and then there is some light industrial development, as well as the subject property was essentially a rural residential property. The house was recently removed from the property. There is a single-family dwelling, a rural residence to the south of the property. There is one as well to the east of the property. I've been given conflicting reports on this property, whether or not someone's actually living there or what they're utilizing the property for. As well as you're aware that there is some significant residential development to the south, directly to the south of 110. The last rezones within this vicinity was this subject property right here, which was rezoned to rural residential to facilitate a dwelling that was constructed on the property. So with that, that's a kind of an analysis and update of it. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time. Otherwise, this is a public hearing and second reading for this item today.
Does anyone have any questions for staff?
Madam Chair.
Yes,
Toby,
go ahead.
how many acres again is this?
It's, the parcel size is 2.14 acres.
All right, this is our public hearing. Is the applicant here? Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone here who would like to speak against the application? Okay, come on up. And state your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Drew Denai, 27290 470th Avenue. I'm the property right to the south there. This is my wife, Katie. We spoke with the applicant before the last public hearing. He approached us one evening, said that he intended on building a shop for his fencing company. At that time, I wasn't extremely opposed to it. I had some concerns, but he assured me he wanted to keep everything as natural as he could around there as far as trees and stuff. But I was assuming that it was getting zoned commercial. He was just going to be putting up a shop for his company. Now that I find that it's industrial, it kind of raises some red flags for me as to what's going to really happen there. And the lot to the north of him, there's some huge issues there. And I just have a feeling that they're gonna, I don't know. It's already starting to impact my property, definitely on the gravel road. Anything else? We're just wondering why it needs to be zoned industrial. I did speak with Toby this morning. He kind of reassured me that that was so that there wasn't customers coming and going, but I guess it doesn't ease all of my concerns as far as traffic flow and the impact on the road. And I mean, it comes up pretty close to my house there. I was reading on the comprehensive plan last night, and it says there should be a buffer zone between industrial and residential. My house has been there since 1977. You know, it's always been residential there. The property that he has used to be a house. I don't know, just it seems like it's way too close to our property to have something like that going on.
The condition of the roadways, I'm sorry, my name's Katie Denai, I'm Drew's wife, same address. The conditions of the roadway there also are deteriorating. There's potholes there that you could probably bury a small dog in. And I think increasing the traffic through there with another industrial business is going to create more havoc on that road.
We have a child, and we've had to tell her to stop riding her bike on the gravel road. That's something that I did my whole life growing up, living out in the country, is ride my bike on the gravel road, and we can't even trust a 12-year-old to do that anymore. It's gotten bad enough, so. I guess that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this item? Come on up, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, Jerome Miller, 46989 273rd Street. I own the property that would be kitty corner right there. It's 5.5 acres, 5.25. I'm just here in the I guess, the support of the neighbors and my concerns of the industrial and the commercial growth. My wife and I built that house 26 years ago, and we were the first house off the interstate. And I realized things change. Matter of fact, I can't believe how fast 26 years went by, but we continue to make this a residential area. Matter of fact, one house is still under construction that Toby pointed out on the south side of 110, this yellow one. There was nothing along that entire strip. But anyway, to mix in the residential with the commercial, commercial's not quite so bad, but the light industrial really opens up the doors for a lot of stuff. And Drew and Katie are gonna be an island out there in the middle of all of this in real short order. My other concern is, and I've seen it happen before, where somebody will come in and buy something just to turn around and sell it to somebody else, and with it being zoned light industrial, that's the case. If Drew and Katie have no issue with a machine shed or a shop going in there, I certainly don't have any. They're the ones closest to it, but like I say, the gravel company that's right there, that would be a prime possibility to buy that property is my biggest concern, so, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this item? Come on up. Good morning.
Good morning. Rhonda Sherman, 47008 Terry Lane, and we're the second house in that development right there. Mainly, we're here to support Drew and Katie. Part of it is in this lot that they're trying to change into industrial, the one north of it is agricultural, and it's getting used as industrial right now. So we are hearing noises, we're getting dust from this industrial that's not even zoned to be industrial. So you also have housing developments north of this. So when you get into the commercials and all this stuff, I mean, you're impacting all of those. We hear the noise. At 7 o'clock this morning, all I'm hearing is the crushing of the rock on that land north of this addition. And so we're trying to stop this because we all came out here. 20 plus years, I'm as old as Jerome here. We built our home. We lost our home in a fire. We rebuilt our home. We rebuilt it because we wanted to be out in the country and different things like that. I understand that T wants commercial and all this stuff, but you started out as a residential area with this area, and now we're getting inundated. In fact, we just went last 2 weeks ago or a week ago, had the lot south of Katie and Drew. They wanted to do that as industrial, and we stopped it for 1 month because they didn't have a conceptual plan of what they wanted to do. We know what they wanted to do. Double H wants to buy it. So for us, we don't want that the two properties that are in that section that are residential to be commercial or light industrial. We would like it to stay as agriculture or residential. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on the item? If not, Commission, what are your thoughts?
Madam Chair,
Oh,
the
yeah.
applicant is in attendance.
Oh, all right. You want to come on up? State your name and address, please.
DJ Verhey. The address of the property is 27284 470th and T. I am, I guess, in the process or hoping to purchase this property. And I guess the reason being to build a shop space for my business, complete fence, to operate out of, to store some materials and just run the business out of. I guess our goal for the property is in seeing it, and the gravel pile next door and the plans for it would be for us to put the building on that north side of the property. I would really, the goal is to not change anything on that south end, leave as many trees as possible, just to not interrupt. We obviously realize that there's housing nearby, and so I don't want to do anything that's going to cause any issues there. I want it to be clean and organized. I'm growing my business, but really, I guess this property that we're looking at, the reason being for the industrial is the size of the building that we want to do, and then with the outdoor storage and the contractor shop, it fits more in that industrial versus the commercial. So I just wanted to make sure we were following as closely on that zoning as what we could. We rarely ever work weekends. We don't get a whole lot of deliveries in or anything, and typically we work from 7:30 in the morning till we might be getting back at 7 at night, but we don't have a lot of traffic throughout the day. Customers don't really come out to us. It's really just a place that we can operate the business out of, and store some materials fenced in a secure spot.
When you came in, before you came in, there were some comments made about the condition of that road. Is that a township road? Have you talked to the township about that?
I have not yet. I had just looked up I got the information to contact the Delapre Township, I believe, to talk with them about that. Right now, I have 7 employees. When doing this building, we might add 1 or 2 more, but really it would just be those 7 vehicles coming in, and then we just run 2 crews, so it's 2 trucks leaving, and we're on the job during the day, so it's not a lot of back and forth there.
Sure. What, when you say trucks, are these semi-tractors or?
No, we basically just run like 3/4 ton pickup trucks. 1 ton flatbed and a trailer.
Any questions from the board for the applicant?
What size building are you proposing?
I believe the square footage is like around 11,500.
And have you sat down with the deniers to address their concerns at all?
Just, it was probably a couple of months ago. Just kind of talked to him briefly, introduced myself, and talked to him about our thoughts on potentially purchasing and then putting a building on that north end.
All right. Anybody else have any questions?
Where do you, excuse me, Madam Chair,
Yeah,
where do
go
you
ahead.
presently have your facility?
So we're currently just about 2 miles north, off of, well, we're on Sunset Boulevard off of Sundowner, so at the T exit.
What's the address there?
46993 Sunset Boulevard, suite number 5. We do have some storage out back there, but with the way that everything's been going as far as material and everything, we've been having to order larger quantities just to make sure that we have what we need and can get it. So the outdoor space there where we're renting currently is just not enough space, and preferably I'd like to keep as much inside as possible.
So where you're at now, there's multiple businesses in that
there's like
building?
6 businesses there, and they're all there's a detail shop and a mechanic and a window tint guy and actually a guy selling used cars. So there's just so many cars in that parking lot.
That's what-
and
yeah, I
all
see
those
that.
shops.
What, which bay are you? Are you to the east or the west?
We're, number 5 would be the second in from the west.
Okay. And so are all those vehicles in the back? What are those yours or?
No, the only thing that we park in that back lot would be one truck and trailer. The other truck and trailer's parked inside. And then, like, typically, when we're not working, the front lot is empty from any of our stuff.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions? If not, I consider a motion to approve.
Before we go on, I
Yeah,
have
go
a
ahead.
question for Toby. Toby, it was mentioned right at the beginning that there's a buffer zone necessary to separate residential from industrial or light industrial. Would you care to comment on that?
Yeah, there's a policy in the comprehensive plan that talks about buffering those differing land uses, correct?
What constitutes that?
There isn't any specification of distance, size, or any of that, so it's just a general guiding statement. But as you can see, there's existing commercial and residential within the vicinity. But again, as I've mentioned, this is a mixed use of many uses within there.
Toby, why is that agricultural area to the north being used as a gravel pit? I mean,
It's a compliance issue currently,
it is.
yes.
So what's going on with that?
It's a compliance issue currently.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. All right,
One more question.
go ahead.
Did I hear this correctly? You have not purchased it yet?
No, so the purchase is contingent on being able to get it zoned, and I'd have to do a conditional use as well, so making sure that I'm able to do that before the purchase is done.
Anybody else? If not, I consider a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll offer a motion to approve the rezone.
Thank you. Is there a second? I'm not hearing a second. All right, motion fails for lack of a second.
Madam Chair, I'm not going to vote for this and right at the present time, I think there's a lot of issues that are of concern to me that haven't been addressed.
Such as?
Well, I looked at and I listened to, this may sound trite to you, but the safety that these individuals have enjoyed on living where they are, and added space puts their kids like to ride a bicycle. And I think that's part of a quality of life thing that may not be important to others, but yet it does talk about the conditions that presently exist, which may drastically change with the amount of volume of trucks that come on here. And it is always a challenge to try to balance between residential and commercial. And I would agree that once you do this with the topography that's there, you're probably going to drastically change that residential scope. So those are a couple of reasons, and if there was a possibility that there was some negotiations that could go on between the proposed purchaser and the existing property owners, I wouldn't be opposed to that. But as of right now, I'm not in favor.
All right, well, I'd like to get the issue off the table, so we can have a motion to approve and you can vote any way you want to vote.
I'll make a motion to deny.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion. Any further discussion? If not, Sean, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Gibbon,
Madam Chair, I would actually like to speak.
Go ahead.
And I hear my fellow commissioners on this, but we look at a land use question today, not the specific business that's going on there. What my question would be is, what is the best use for this land? And that's our role. We're now talking about commercial, industrial, and residential, but a large partial of this residential is actually pre-95 jurisdiction where there was no regulation on those houses coming out there. And there's nothing wrong with them. They fit into the area very nicely now, but they're not under the same requirements as a rural residential development because they're still, correct me if I'm wrong, Toby, still ag classification, which someone could build a house, put a shop up, and put a business in it, and we wouldn't have anything to say about it to much degree. So my question is we need to just look at the land use, and I'm not opposed not improving this as an industrial, but we do have to make a decision how we're going to recommend that this be a land use or utilized as what type of land use moving forward. So, and it is contiguous to an light industrial area already. So, as a land use, it fits a lot of our criteria that we've used in the past to approve. So, but again, I hear the conditions. The area just needs to have an answer what the long-term plan is. So.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, Sean, will you call the roll?
Madam Chair, could I have clarification on the motion, please?
Sure.
the motion is to deny the ordinance to rezone.
Thank you.
Does that change your second? Okay, just checking. Sean, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
No.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
No, motion fails.
I would move to table this for 1 week. Or
Sir.
until our next meeting.
Is there a
Sorry.
second?
Second.
Thank you. Sean, will you call the roll?
That was second by Schmidt.
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes. Motion carries. Move on to item 2.
This is a public hearing for a resolution of Lincoln County approving the preliminary subdivision plan of La Valley Business Park Edition, Phase 2. The Planning Commission recommends approval 6-0.
Good morning again. As mentioned, this is an application from Dennis Klinghagen for a preliminary subdivision plan. The property is currently zoned commercial. This is what we call Phase 2 of this addition. This would have been Phase 1 of the addition. The applicant is proposing to subdivide this property into 7 lots. The applicant, again, as mentioned, did submit a preliminary plan with that application. Essentially, there would be 7 lots that would go along Fairfield Place here. This is, again, the preliminary plan, so the application does meet the requirements. Staff has worked with IMEG, the county engineer, to review this application. It is in conformance with the requirements for a preliminary plan. The Planning Commission did approve it. It's awaiting your approval. Upon your approval, the applicants will have to submit final engineering plans to the Office to Planning and Zoning. Once those are approved in conjunction with IMEG, then the property will be able to be platted. but as submitted, the application does meet the standards and is recommended for approval. With that, happy to answer your questions that you have for staff.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions for staff? If not, we're having our public hearing, so is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Anyone here to speak against it? If not, consider a motion.
Move to approve the preliminary plan.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, Sean, will you please call a roll?
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes. Motion carries. Move on to item 3 on our agenda today.
Okay, thanks, Madam Chair. So staff has been working or participated in the IM 26 task force with yourself and Commissioner Schmidt. The resulting of that task force meeting was a recommendation for an ordinance amendment to the joint jurisdictional ordinance for Lincoln County and the city of Sioux Falls. Because of timing for that, city of Sioux Falls, as far as the adoption part of it, we are requesting that you would have a special meeting on August 17th. That would be your off week for the commission. But staff is requesting that you would have a special meeting on that day to do the first reading of an ordinance that would amend the joint zoning ordinance for medical cannabis. And then you will have the second reading and public hearing on August 24th, and that will be at Carnegie Town Hall in Sioux Falls. And so we wanted to place this on the regular agenda so that you could discuss it to make sure that you'll have a quorum for both of those dates. And then if you have any questions for staff at this time of kind of what the proposal is.
So the first reading you'd want on August 17th in the morning?
Yes.
And the 24th in the evening in Sioux Falls. Right?
Yes.
Are we available? Is everybody available?
Yes.
Commissioner
Yep.
Gibbon, are you available?
I believe so, correct.
Okay. All right. Need a
Just-
motion on that?
Yeah, just improve the setting of that.
Okay,
I also move, Madam Chair, if you need a motion.
I do.
Second.
Thank you. Sean, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes, motion carries. Move on to item 4 on our agenda.
Item number 4 is the third public hearing and second reading to consider the adoption of an ordinance of Lincoln County, South Dakota titled an ordinance to regulate medical cannabis within Lincoln County.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
This is the third time that I've come before you at this point for a public hearing on owners on medical marijuana. There's been some changes to it. I can walk you down through it if you would like. I can answer questions if you would prefer to do it that way.
I think just for everybody's benefit, why don't you walk us through it?
Have a Section 1 for the ordinance is a definition section. It pretty much mirrors the statute that has been adopted in 3420G1. It goes into definitions for what cannabis is, the amounts. It defines the relationship between the practitioner and the patient who can issue a registration card. These are all the different areas that are defined. Like I said, it's all within the statute.
Just a question on those definitions as far as the registry identification card. can that be a tribal card?
So, to open that can of worms,
Well, I'm just,
I've read the state's proposed rules.
okay,
The way I read the state proposed rules is that a South Dakota resident has to go to a South Dakota doctor and receive a canvas card or registration card from South Dakota. It's gonna be a $100 fee for that. It's gonna be a $20 fee in order to register with a database so it can be tracked. And so that has to be an in-person meeting with a physician here within the state.
does it provide for that in our ordinance?
It provides for the fact that they have to comply with the rules set forth by the state, so yes, it would.
Okay, thank you.
So, I think all of our definitions are gonna be consistent with 3420G because they've been basically taken exactly from the statute.
All right,
Okay.
We address hours of operation. It's the same thing that's in the planning and zoning ordinance, which would be from 8 AM to 10 PM for operating times for the facilities. Any questions?
no, not here. Anybody?
Nope.
Okay,
The operation of the establishment fairly well mirrors the statute under 3420G where it's at. The changes to it is that it includes daycares, and I've included the definition of a daycare has to be over 21 children. That would be a licensed facility, so we're not talking about in-home daycares, because we do not track them, and that had been pointed out that there would be no way to actually know if in the area whether or not there's an in-home daycare.
Why was the number set at 21?
Because that's what's in statute for a licensed daycare for a facility, which would be like a T-TOTS or something along those lines, so that it's a clear definition that we're not talking about an in-home facility.
So if a person was at, let's say, 18 or 20, then that 1,000-foot rule doesn't apply?
Not to that facility, it would not at that point. I don't think with being unincorporated areas, we're gonna run into that too much, because it has to be in a commercial or an industrial area, so I think the
That's probably true.
zoning will alleviate that problem. The operation of it would include security requirements for the facilities. It requires them to be controlled entrance and accesses so that only individuals who are authorized or within the facility. And then it requires all cultivation, harvesting, or packaging of marijuana would have to be within a secured facility.
This is part of our ordinance, right?
This is part of our ordinance.
So we're getting away from the actual just dissemination or distribution. We're now getting into the manufacturing of this product?
Previously, when I drafted the first medical marijuana ordinance, we had it all broke out between the different facilities, and they each had to be licensed individually, and we had numbers of licenses that the commission could restrict the numbers of each of these facilities. Through the drafting process and comment period and discussions with the commission, that was removed from the ordinance. And so these other regulations and restrictions have remained throughout the process, so.
Tim, I don't know whether, I have several comments that I want to make relative to the manufacturing of this product and to the production of this product. So is this a germane time to do that, or should you walk all the way through it and then I'll make my comments?
I think that's a question for the chairman, not for myself.
Madam Chair?
I'd like to keep going, and we'll circle back if we need to.
Okay.
The a lot of these qualifications for operations are already in the statutes, so they're mirroring the statutes. There hasn't been a lot of alterations. One of the alterations is that this gives Lincoln County the ability to inspect the facility under its license. So that is an addition to what's already in statute. The section 2 that talks about what type of security is new. It is not in the statute, and it requires the facility to go ahead and have an electronic system that records internally and externally and maintains that recording for 180 days. The state regulations that they're putting in place mirrors this as well. So they're making the same requirement that there be some type of recording system to make sure you can track people in the facility or outside of the facility. Well-lit parking lot, a locked and closed facility, that's consistent with the statute that requires this to be an enclosed facility. It requires internal security and tracking and inside of the building of all of the cannabis. And then it requires any security compliances that the state would put on in order to operate a facility, because Department of Health can promulgate rules, which they're in the process of, or they've been released at this point. The addition to section 2 that has been included is that it requires any of the medical cannabis establishments or facility to have the following signage, which warns that operating a motor vehicle under the influence is a criminal act, stating that resale of medical marijuana is prohibited by state law, and that medical cannabis cannot be used on the premises. And those are all consistent or within the statutes. So this starts laying out the permitting process so the county can go ahead and issue a permit or a license. And it requires them to comply with Lincoln County's requirements and the state Department of Health requirements and rules and regulations, because they need to go ahead and apply with them in order to get permission in order to basically come into Lincoln County, and then we have a right to have a license that they would apply for. So both would have to be complied with. The county license at this point, the way this is currently drawn, would allow one license would allow a operator to have a dispensary, cultivation, testing facility, or a manufacturing facility all in one facility, so it'd be vertically integrated. The license period would be for 2 years, and the reason that that was selected is because of the payment option, which we're going to get to, which was initially, or now it's set at $50,000. So the applicant would pay $25,000 up front. At the end of the first year, they'd pay $25,000 at the end of the year. The following year, they'd have a renewal period, a renewal application, which would come back before the commission, and that would be $20,000 to cover the 2 years, which would be $10,000 each year. And of course, all of this is subject to change if the commission would wish. You can change it down the road. This is an emergency provision, so we'd have to come back in and revisit it anyways to make any changes or adjustment within the year if you adopt it.
Bill, in this ordinance, do we address the one license per applicant so we don't get inundated?
Yes, it is. You have the ability to have, oh, you're asking me a different question. That question is can they go ahead and file multiple applications if they have multiple locations? If they don't have multiple locations and they're filing them all for one single application, that would be at the discretion of the commission how you want to deal with those. But it requires them for each location to have a separate license. So if somebody comes in and has 4 different locations, they could file 4 different licenses. If they have a single location, I think at that point we'd accept one and then set the others aside.
Well, in the discussions in the task force and even from folks from the industry seemed that problems would arise because we would get 100 applications from some big corporation outside of the state, et cetera, and they had suggested limiting it to one application, one license per applicant.
There may be a deterrent, which is they'd have to write a check for $25,000 for each of those applications.
Well, is that the application fee?
Yes.
So it's It's not the license fee.
No, and
So that's where is there an application fee
The
and a license fee?
it is all considered to be one. At the time that they file the application, there needs to be a $25,000 check that if they don't get the license, we would return it. But they would have to go ahead and put the $25,000 up front.
And are we refunding all of that or just a portion of it?
The intent at this time would be to refund it all if the license is denied for some reason. There are other considerations. If they send in 100 applications and you approved all 100 of them, then that $25,000 on those 100 license applications would all be the commissions or the counties.
No, and I understand that. I just think by the time we get through an application process, I mean, the county is expending money on those applications. So, I mean, I think that personally, I think at $5,000 should be non-refundable. I don't know what the commission's thoughts are on that, but it's gonna cost us to process these.
And as we've demonstrated through this process, we can certainly reschedule another hearing and I can do some more drafting.
I'm not trying to be difficult.
We're just working through the process.
What are the thoughts of the board on that issue?
Well, Madam Chair, you know, the only money that we really get to cover all the county costs are in the application fee, and anything that we do costs us money. So any way we can regroup that, it would seem to me if we put a non-refundable fee, whether it's $5,000 or something less than that, I certainly wouldn't be opposed to that.
I think the reasons for denying the application has to be pretty clear then for us to take money and not grant an application.
Well, in the task force meetings that we've had, that's pretty common to not refund a portion of that fee.
So I think when we get to that portion, there are some very specific things that would mandate not issuing a license. I mean, the way it's currently written, if somebody has multiple locations and for some reason you don't want to issue more than one license to an individual in an area, you could do that and reject it for that purposes. They could have a disqualifying felony. They could have a track record with the county which shows that they don't comply with ordinances. And I did include a provision of good moral character, meaning that it would be an individual who there is some reason or something in their background to suspect that they fall down as far as being able to follow the rules and the law and be good citizens. That one is always implicit in every licensing system, is that the person who is accepting the license is going to be able to follow the rules and be a good citizen. So we're just making it explicit. That one clearly is a little more in the gray area, but the other ones, as far as if somebody's been convicted of an aggravated assault, that's disqualifying. If they have been in the county and they've lost a license because of a marijuana dispensary previously, that would be an easy one. Anything that's directly related to not following the law or being able to comply with rules or planning and zoning, any of those would be disqualifiers underneath it if the commission thought it raised to that level. So there are some written into it. I think they would have to be very narrow and they'd have to be limited in some way that you could tie them into the marijuana dispensary and their ability to follow the rules and regulations. So the permitting procedure, once again, would be for 2 years. That's for a couple of reasons. One was for the fee structure. The other reason is that it does cut down on the compliance requirements for the facility and for the commission. Because if you're issuing the license every 2 years, it cuts down on staff time and how long they have to process it and how often they have to come back to the commission. The licensing fee, as I've talked about, would be an incremental, so it would be $25,000 at the front, $25,000 at the end of the year. The commission is going to, after a hearing, decide whether or not to grant a license. The violations for revocation or suspension are for not complying with the rules and regulations that are set out in the license, or under the state's rules and regulations, or violations of the statute concerning marijuana. And then the renewal fee would be $20,000 for 2 years, so basically $10,000 a year for the renewals. The end of it talks about prohibitions where marijuana, and most of this is taken directly out of the statutes, that you can't go ahead and use marijuana products in public and transportation. It doesn't prohibit employers from having their own regulations in the workplace. Nothing in the ordinance would require for renters or anyone else to allow somebody to use marijuana on the premises. And once again, talks about employment. The final one are similar prohibitions. So you can't consume in public places. You can't owner of license. I did add the last two, which are class 2 misdemeanors, an ordinance, which would be if you're occupying a motor vehicle, you can't have an open container of marijuana in a motor vehicle. It is directly taken from the statute from open containers for alcohol. So if you had an open container of alcohol and you put it in your trunk, you can't reach it, you're okay. If you had an open container of marijuana, you put it in your trunk, you can't reach it, you're okay. You have it inside of the vehicle where there's access to any of the occupants, then that would be a class 2 misdemeanor for having an open container of marijuana in the vehicle. The rationale behind this is that it's not supposed to be used in public. It shouldn't be open, shouldn't be attainable to the occupants. If it is, if the driver has access to it, you're probably looking at law enforcement anyways, because they have a right to still enforce the driving laws concerning driving while intoxicated. You're still talking about that individual probably going through field sobriety tests to determine whether or not they're actually using marijuana, if there's any signs of it or smells. So this just works in conjunction. The second portion of it is a class 2 misdemeanor for anyone to have a package or receptacle of marijuana that isn't labeled that it comes from a legal dispensary. That way, if somebody has just a Ziploc bag and that Ziploc bag has no labeling on it, law enforcement doesn't know if that's marijuana that's come from a legal dispensary or if it's something that's been illegally brought into the state. If somebody's going to go through the process of having a legal dispensary, we're going to regulate it. We're going to tell them they have to pay all these fees and everything else, and that no one else is allowed to have illegal marijuana in Lincoln County. This makes it easy for the officers. We're not banning marijuana. We're just saying that you have to comply with our licensing conditions, that it has to be labeled. The exceptions to this would be is if a person has a baggie of marijuana and they have a registration certificate from a physician that says they can grow their own in their home, then that would make that marijuana at that point in time legal. Or if they're a caregiver who is transporting it to someone, they would have to have a registration to show that that marijuana is legal, that they have done it in conformance with state law, state rules, and our ordinance. So I don't think this would really be much of a burden for most people who are doing it legally to have a package of marijuana that says, I got it from this dispensary and you know exactly where it comes from. It'll make it much easier on law enforcement. It makes it clear for the public that you shouldn't take it out, put it in a pure bottle that's unmarked and hand it to somebody else to walk around with, because it's a labeling issue for us. We want to make sure that if we're going to have legal marijuana under medical marijuana, that it comes from a legal establishment.
Bill, would this same thing apply that if the Supreme Court comes out and finds recreational to be legal, would we have the same rules and regulations that people would have to have if they have in their possession bag of marijuana, which is now legal in the state anywhere. So to try to control the black market, it would have to have some kind of certification that it was purchased at a particular dispensary, right?
I have through here included Amendment A. I don't know if it's going to be, I mean, at the moment, it's been ruled to be unconstitutional. Supreme Court hasn't ruled, it could become legal.
I don't know.
So the intention here would be to, throughout the document, it does tie in a constitutional amendment A to our regulations. I would bring you another ordinance, which would require that if they're gonna have a facility here that they have to, for recreational, that they would have complied with all the Department of Revenue's rules, because they're gonna be the ones that controls this.
Sale.
But as well, they would have to have in order to operate that facility in Lincoln County, they would have to go ahead and have a medical marijuana dispensary connected to it. Because that connection then makes them
Yes.
meet all of our requirements.
Okay.
And if we're gonna have medical marijuana dispensaries with all of these regulations and comply, it would make absolutely no sense to have somebody for recreational and not have them comply with the same rules and regulations.
And that's gonna be a separate ordinance?
I would do that as a separate ordinance.
Okay. Any questions? Comments?
Is that it?
That is an invitation, but it's a very short-lived invitation. Go ahead.
Well, I offer this to you commissioners and to the public. This may not be the most popular, but in this process of studying medical cannabis, this has been kind of an educational process. And while we made the attempts to put in our ordinance in the best possible way, there are several provisions on this ordinance that concern me a great deal. And I had quite a lengthy conversation with a gentleman named Tim Bellings, who is the chair of the South Dakota chapter of International Fire Marshals Association, in which he talked about that they are preparing a document to talk about the hazards of processing processing marijuana in general. But my comments, commissioners, are to you this morning is this. We've heard about vertical integration and how that we compass all 4 areas of cannabis, which is the growth and production, manufacturing, testing, sales, and distribution. So what is the role of county government? What do we have to really regulate? And when we talk about really regulating, what are going to be the costs related to all of those things? I'm going to throw out some stuff, and this may not be the most popular thing, but you talk about growth, for example. So we say you can grow marijuana, but you can't grow it outside. Well, now you can grow it inside. So what's been the experience of a lot of areas is that all of your vacant buildings, your vacant houses, vacant storefronts become potential farms for raising marijuana. I mean, this isn't a fantasy story. This is actually true, because they need a great deal of electricity for grow lamps. Well, if we have all of these areas available in Lincoln County and we have security problems, to me, we can have cameras that tell you who comes in and who goes out, but it still becomes the responsibility of our sheriff's department to maintain somewhat of the security of this thing. And what about the citizens or mayors of small towns that may be affected by having a lot of buildings that may encompass or may be desirable for such building purposes? And I just think about that, and how would they feel if you lived in a small town and suddenly you woke up and here you found that you had a lot of marijuana being grown in some of your more vacant buildings? And another point is the actual processing and manufacturing of marijuana contains chemicals which are highly inflammable and are you know, I can't pronounce them. But the point is that these chemicals that if and become very inflammable, we're putting a burden on our fire departments. And these are volunteer fire departments, whether you're in Worthing or whether you're in Canton or T or wherever. They have to take into consideration on what kind of hazards do they face today? What kind of chemicals situations are they gonna have to encounter? Are they prepared for those things? So I'm thinking, why does the county wanna get into the growth and production and manufacturing licensing? Why don't we just say with the sales and dispensary, like the majority of the state is doing, so that we're not responsible for those areas? We're only responsible for the sale and dispensary, and make it that our responsibility and leave it at that. Those are my concerns. I am not in favor of the growth and the manufacturing. I just am not. I think there's too many areas that we expose too many people, and we expect where our reaction is having a undue effect on mayors and citizens, on fire departments, and our own sheriff's department. So those are the two things I would like to see stricken from our ordinance, and we remain just in the sales part. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments? Your comments are well taken, Commissioner Schmidt. I know during these meetings, we talked about why we would want to have the vertical integration, and one of those reasons was to keep costs down for the producers or the people that are going to come in and want to do business in Lincoln County, so that the cost of the legal marijuana stays low as possible, which would arguably have an impact on black market marijuana that's not legal. And so those were the thoughts on keeping the costs down. It also, the thoughts were to keep the transporting and all of that off of the road. I've talked to the sheriff about what we're doing. He'll support whatever the commission votes. So with, you know, the comments, whatever does happen with this, it is gonna put pressure on law enforcement. But to your point about empty vacant buildings having a grow operation in them, they would have already had to go through this whole licensing process. And with the setbacks that we're gonna have in place, I don't know that that would come to fruition. So I think we have the safeguards in place against that right now. Am I wrong?
Well, these grow operations would have to have all the licensing requirements. They'd have to meet our zoning requirements. So I think that there would be highly restrictive as far as the, like residential's. I just don't think the zoning would allow that. But I mean, I can't really address how many sites we have or what would actually be available, but it would be, each of these sites would either have a license and comply with all the requirements, or it'd be an illegal operation.
Still stand on that situation, because I think if there's a will, there's a way. The other part, though, is the fire situation. We've never contacted any of our rural fire our partners to find out what facilities they have to combat a blaze that may emulate from one of these things. We don't know. We're placing issues on them that they may not be capable of handling. And I think that's something we really need to check on before we move forward, because this can have some real serious implications. And if you did license something in a facility, in a community, and it met all the zoning requirements, you still have that situation existing that didn't exist before. So I'm not going to change. I'm just saying that these are the things that we found. These are the things that our neighboring communities have done. I mean, Minnehaha and the city of Sioux Falls. And I think several other communities have done basically the same thing, stuck with just the sales portion. And that was what the county wished to supervise.
Respectfully, we've had 3 different public meetings of the task force. This is our 3rd public hearing that we're having today. if the fire departments or fire chiefs wanted to address this with any of us, come to those meetings, they've certainly have had an opportunity to do that. With that, though, I am going to, this is our public hearing, so I'm going to ask if there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of this ordinance.
Hello again.
And sir, I am limiting you to 5 minutes.
All right, I'll maybe not use all of that. Thanks for having me, Ned Horsted. I live in Lincoln County, have pretty much my entire life, 27058 Southeastern Avenue. I appreciate the time and effort and thoughtfulness that's gone into putting this ordinance together. There are just two items that I wanted to mention, and perhaps I have the wrong version of this coming out of the public comment book here, but it does look to still prohibit vertical integration, which Bill just mentioned it didn't, so it's very likely that this is just an oversight. But under page 8, application submitted to county, fee, approval, disapproval, section 1, the approval of the application permits a person, or no, the governing body may reject an application for a new medical cannabis establishment or facility if the approval of the application permits a person, corporation, or business entity to possess more than one license in the jurisdiction. I think that needs just a slight modification, one license per license type. There are four license types. Is this an old version maybe that I'm looking at? Okay, so yeah, as long as that is per license type, so as to not prohibit vertical integration, I think that's excellent. To Commissioner Schmidt's concerns on extraction, I think that can be solved for with some pretty simple language. There is solvent extraction and solventless extraction. One has volatile chemicals, the other does not, and really isn't. I mean, some states there will be cultivation areas where as long as you don't have a solvent-based extraction, you're not worried about blowing anything up, which seems to be a reasonable concern, and is also addressed in the zoning ordinance with it having to, or with these extraction facilities having to go into an industrial area. The other piece is the fee. I'm glad that we've come down from $175,000. I think a $50,000 license fee is still probably a little high. I don't know how many of you have $50K just chilling in your bank account right now. But we as an industry appreciate wanting to eliminate the black market as much as possible, and I'll keep beating that same drum where too many government restrictions and regulations just help to make that thrive. So if you want to push out all other licensing types, I appreciate that this does not do that. That would be a major issue there. I would recommend, like, the state fee is $5,000. I don't know if there's been any research done in terms of what the actual cost of the county would be. I would love to see that. $50,000 is probably, I imagine, pretty close to a 1 FTE for the county. I would like to see that, I guess, closer to the state total of $5K. The concerns about, the application fee being the only thing that the county can recuperate cost-wise. I mean, I'll remind that these businesses will be paying property taxes. I imagine there are inspection fees when you're dealing with fire departments and other things that are required. So I just want to make this accessible for small capital investors, because that will continue to drive down the prices and eliminate the black market and hopefully solve for a lot of the problems. I think we're all in the same place there in terms of what we do and do not want to see. It's just some unintended consequences, I guess, when you're talking about how to best go about this.
It's your 1 minute warning.
Yeah. All right. I'll wrap up there unless anyone has questions for me, I guess.
Does anybody have any questions? All right, thanks, Ned.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else want to speak on this application, on the ordinance? Nobody? All right, commissioners, any comments? If not, I'd consider a motion.
Also move, Madam Chair, that we accept the policy as written with the changes that Bill has, that we have asked him to do, and as presented today. Is that clear enough, or do you need something more specific, Madam Chair?
Well, when you say the changes the bill has made, you mean the current ordinance that's in front
Yes,
of
the
us?
current ordinance is correct.
That's my understanding. The only thing my comment, I think there's a few Scrivener errors in there that maybe need to be cleaned up, but I don't think it's anything substantive, so.
Are you talking about, that you wanted language in this one which would include that you may only file one application at a time?
That's what I would like to see personally. But I don't know if that's a substantive change that we would have to have another public hearing on.
I do think the second one, which would be talking about non-refundability of the money and stuff, I think that is getting that area where I'd be uncomfortable with just doing a change here.
And I'm not asking for that right now. So
And
those
this-
were just comments I was making.
This is temporary because it has emergency provision, so we would be back to revisit this in the future.
Right, I mean, this is a moving target until we get it figured out, so.
Madam Chair, I'll offer a second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, Sean, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
No.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes. Motion carries. Move on to item 5. Bill, are you gonna handle item 5? 5, 6, and 7.
Yes, this is a county poor relief and the county lien, public defender's lien. We had a sexual assault case here in Lincoln County that involved minor children. There was a husband and wife, they owned a home together. There's been a divorce at this point in time, and the husband has been removed. He is currently serving a very lengthy prison sentence. Based on it, our office considered the wife and the family to be a victim in the case. They are currently, because of the house being in her name, the lien has attached to her home. And so we're asking the commission, because we consider them to be victims in the case, not to have to pay for his county poor relief, which was, I think, from his jail stay. And the lien, which is for his public defender's fees, to which they were the victims. So we're asking the lien to be removed from their home so that they don't have to pay for
I would
his
so move, Madam Chair.
representation.
Second.
Thank you. Sean, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes. Move on to item 6.
6 is we've received a proposed lease from the representative from the Airport Association. I want to bring that to the commission's attention. I believe there's a airport committee that's being put together. I would suggest that this matter be referred to them.
I think that's a good idea. You need a motion on that, Bill?
Yes.
I have a motion to refer that to the, what are we calling it, the airport committee?
I'll second it, Madam Chair.
Advisory committee.
Okay. Sean, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes.
We have a experts, contract for an expert witness in our death penalty case. It is going to be a contract for $25,000. It exceeds the $5,000 mark that normally department heads have to bring for the commission. We're asking for permission.
Again, Madam Chair, I'll offer a motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Sean, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes. Deborah? Good morning.
Debbie Block, treasurer. I'm here to request a payment plan for two homeowners that have, well, one has current taxes and the other one has prior taxes. The first homeowner is parcel number 228-09004, Canton Fits and Bends, west 34 feet, lot 2, and all lots 3 and 4, and north half vacant alley, block 9. This person had prior taxes and has gotten them all paid up in July of this year, but she still has special assessment for sidewalk and city nuisance that she would like to make payment plans on, and she can make $50 a month, $55 a month, and we figured it out where if she started, she would have it paid off by April of next year. And then the second homeowner has, is at parcel number 260-20-07001 at Beersford Armors Addition, lot north, 74 feet of east, 150 feet, block 7. This homeowner has taxes owing from 2018 through this year. The total amount on that is $2,927.30. They would like to make payments of $244 a month starting in August. We would have everything cleared up by July of '22, including the priors and this year's.
Thoughts from the board? Is there a motion?
I'd move for approval to accept the treasurer's recommendation on the taxpayers' repayment.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? And Debbie, you are recommending we approve these?
Yes, I approve. I think this would be a good plan for both parties.
All right, thank you. With that, Sean, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landy.
Yes. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have our Veterans Service Officer update. Good morning, Susan.
Good morning. I am here to do a few things. I had emailed you, I think it was toward the end of May, about becoming a Purple Heart County, and with also communities within the county becoming Purple Heart communities. And as of now, we have 2 communities that are on board with that, so that is good. I'm still waiting to hear back from T, Lennox, and Worthing, and be working on that again. Both my assistant and I have reached out to them. Anyway, what I need from you today is we want to have a county, recognition event for this, where we would bring the communities that are on board and they would be recognized, and then our county also. And that recognition would be given by Ken Tunison, who is the regional commander for the Military Order of the Purple Heart. At that time, he would be presenting the signs for our county and the parking signs as well. And we like to just do it all at once instead of going from one community to another. I thought it would be nice to do a big recognition event. So what I need from you is to decide when to do that. I'm looking in September. Union County, I'm doing this also in Union County, and they have chosen the date of September 7th after one of their commission meetings, and so I don't know if that's something that would be of interest to you. So I know that you have different meetings and different days that you want to, some meetings are shorter and longer, and I don't know if we know on that, but I need to know, I would like to get this information so I can let the communities know, so they can be prepared.
Are you suggesting that date, or?
No,
You're gonna be busy with that one, right?
Yes, so
Okay.
that date's taken, so.
Do you have another date that you're suggesting?
Any of your other Tuesdays would be fine for me, and I believe for Ken as well.
Will this be a morning event or an evening?
I would
event?
say if it could be after a commission meeting, maybe that would be, while you're here still, so that you don't have to.
Well, we have, on the 14th, we have the State Association has their county convention for all county commissioners, and that's in Rapid City. And on the 21st, we have the County tour is set for 9 o'clock. So that would push this back to about the 28th. Would that be acceptable?
That works.
28th? Put it down.
Okay. What time would you like for that?
You know, maybe, I don't know what all's gonna be on our agenda. Maybe we should do it first thing on that agenda in the morning? What are your thoughts?
So bring the communities in for that at that time and then start, that's fine.
We'll put it on 11 o'clock. So they're all here. Got
Yeah,
plenty
we
of
could do
time.
that.
Commissioner
11
Poppins
o'clock?
May want to say a few
Okay.
words.
Okay,
It's fine with me.
Well, I'd give them a chance to all get here, you know.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Get the press
For those-
here. Make this an event.
Oh, it's gonna be an event. Yep.
This is a big thing.
Yes. So just so you're aware, there are only, in the state of South Dakota, there are only 5 counties at this time that are recognized as Purple Heart counties. And so we're relatively new in this. Only 7 communities at this time also are Purple Heart communities. So the website that I sent you were the trail, the Purple Heart Trail, trying to get all of the communities connected within the state to have this recognition. And for those that don't know, Purple Heart Medal, the Purple Heart Medal is awarded for individuals that have been wounded or killed in combat. And we have to remember that and keep, I think it's important for our youth to, see what is a Purple Heart, what does that mean? And we just need to, that is why we need to have this recognition for that. And that's, I think it's significant that we, as a county, also support that. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. So moving on to Union County, I wanted to let you know that I spoke with the commission there on July 13th. And at the end of this year, I have decided to just be the Lincoln County Veteran Service Officer. I think that Union County can support a full-time service officer there, as certainly Lincoln County can, and I'm trying to do both of them, and it's just getting to be more than one person can handle. I like to think I'm good, but I'm not that good. And the numbers certainly support that, and I've shared that with you over the years, how much both offices have grown. And they were sad to see me go, but I'm on board to help the next person and help with the hiring process with that. And so that is going to be a change at the end of the year for me, and I'm looking forward to focusing strictly on Lincoln County now. It's, when I went full-time with both counties in 2019, had no idea how much things were going to take off and grow, but it's been great. So, but it's time for a change there. Any questions?
Questions? No, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Susan.
Terry? Morning.
Good morning. Coming before you this morning, we're looking to declare a new speed zone on County Road 117. Recently, we did a traffic count up there, and the 85th percentile speeds up there currently are 51 miles an hour. Right now, that is a 55 mile an hour zone. So 51 is the 85th percentile. The average speed in there is 46 miles an hour. So what I'm looking or asking for is a resolution to lower the speed limit from County Road 106 down to County Road 110. So a 2 mile stretch in there, we'll be dropping the speed limit down to 45 in there.
So movement, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I got.
Do you have add
there's
something to that?
In addition to this resolution, we're going to be putting in a school speed zone in there as well. And that's going to be located, I'll have Sean read the resolution when I'm done explaining it to you in case you have any questions. So the school speed zone is going to be a reduction of speed down to 15 miles an hour. It's going to be about 50 feet north of 272nd Street. And it's going to end about 50 feet or so south of their access, the school's access. So it's gonna be probably about 1,200 foot long total, something like that, 1,300 foot.
Is there a sign then, it's when children present, or during times of day, flashing light?
Yeah, no flashing lights at this time, but we do have signs, most of the signs are here. And speaking with Tim Graff, superintendent for the Harrisburg schools, we kind of designed the setup for the school zone similar to what Tri-Valley School has, since it's more of a rural setting. So I sent all this information to him, and he's good with what we have set up. So yes, we will be installing them. Hopefully Monday or Tuesday next week, we'll get them up. At the very least, the 45s will go up probably Monday morning next week.
On the school zone, why wouldn't we have flashing lights if they're going from a 45 down to a 15 and it's kids?
We'll have early warnings for that. Tri-Valley does not have any flashing lights on theirs. And again, if we're gonna do flashing lights, I mean, I don't know if that's our cost to incur, but to get the good ones, they're probably about $1,200 to $1,500 each, if you wanna put those up. And again, I don't know, I know some of them in school zones, like in cities, some of those go off at certain times, like an hour before the end of school, hour before school. And then during the day, when they're not outside or they're not going in and out of their access, then they're not flashing. So to get a programmable one like that, I don't know what that would cost, if that's what you're looking at.
Well, what I get concerned about is we need to keep traffic moving on that stretch of road as much as possible, and if we don't have a defined, when children present, that's always leery as to what defines present. So I would look for us to put the signs up if we have to, so that the traffic that comes through there, I mean, that the school is, are they proposing any playground out on Louise Avenue at all, or?
No, at this time, they're not seeing any foot traffic at current open.
So explain to me a little bit, is this for the need for school zone there? Because if they're not foot traffic, it's just traffic, arterial road coming into, because the street's almost, or that school's almost a whole block off of the.
Correct. So for what I got from an explanation from the superintendent was, they just wanted to get traffic slowed down for the additional traffic of dropping off and leaving at the end of the day traffic through there, even with those turn lanes that have been added up there. And again, he told me he wanted to keep it as short as possible, understanding that it is a rural section of road yet. So.
Yeah.
So to give you a breakdown of what signs we're gonna have, we'll have reduced speed or school zone speed ahead sign will be the early warning. And then it'll go to speed limit 15, school zone, speed limit 50 miles an hour when children are present. You'll go through it, and then once you get to the end of it, I believe we're gonna have end school zone signs as well. And that'll be from northbound and southbound sides on that.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I guess I kind of agree with Commissioner Poppins. A flashing sign, I think, would be advantageous for everyone. This is quite a busy area, isn't it? Baker's Crossing, right? Are we
Right.
talking
Yes.
that elementary school?
Right.
It's a heavily traveled road. I can see where people could get confused. I think your attempt is good, Terry, but I think somewhere along the line, we probably should have some flashing signs.
Just so the public has a clear defined as to when they're supposed to be slowing down, when they're supposed to be.
Well, the signs do have when children present, so that's school hours.
Yeah, what define, is somebody in a car present or not? And, because we're not gonna have kids out on, next to the road.
I would surely hope not, because there's no pedestrian crossing.
So then
We
it
will
could
have
be-
pedestrian crossing signs as well, but again, nothing is flashing.
So
If you
we
want
could-
flashing signs, I mean, then they're not gonna probably go up next week.
As long as the school is not proposing playground out by the road. I mean, when school kids are present, that'd be all day long. So let's pursue, in my mind, a flashing sign that defines when that time is supposed to be during the day then. But there'll be a cost, and who's gonna control the time of that flashing if it changes or something like that, and make sure it gets shut off in the summertime when there's no school. that kind of stuff, so.
I will look into it, and I will get them ordered, if that's what your decision
That'd be
is.
my
So-
preference.
So, do you have an issue of where the zone is?
I'm fine with the zone that you've outlined.
I am too, Madam Chair.
Sean, you want to read that resolution, what's going to read?
Yes. Be it resolved to reduce the speed limit from 55 miles per hour to 45 miles per hour on the segment of CR 117, which is 472nd Avenue, between CR 110, which is 273rd Street, to CR 106, which is 271st Street. Be it further resolved to set and declare a school speed limit zone of 15 miles per hour through the zone when children are present for the new Harrisburg Elementary School with the following parameters. From the intersection of CR 117, which is 472nd Avenue, and 272nd Street, 50 feet north of 272nd Street to 1,100 feet south of 272nd Street on CR 117, which is 472nd Avenue.
Madam Chair, I'd offer that motion with the correction that it be replaced by children present to digital, not digital, but a flashing sign that indicates when that time zone is supposed to be adhered to.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second? Sean, will you call the roll?
So it'll say 50 miles per hour through the zone when lights are flashing?
15, not
Or 15, yeah. Through.
Sorry.
Let's,
Thank you.
We.
Yeah, 15 through the zone when lights are flashing?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gibbon?
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
yes.
Commissioner Landine?
Yes. Motion carries.
All right, next item I have is approve and authorize the chair to sign a preliminary engineering grant through the DOT for the Bridge Improvement Grant Program. It's going to be for structure 42120-283. This structure is located on County Road 125, about 3/4 mile north of Highway 46. Cost share on this is going to be 20%. So we're estimating it's going to be around $40,000, $41,000 for this grant. That's a total cost, and our 20% will probably be about $8,000 or $9,000.
So moved, Madam Chair, for you to sign.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, Sean, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Gibbon?
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Landine?
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 12, Julia?
Good morning.
Morning.
The first item is to accept the resignation of Steve Dobby, equipment operator in the Highway Department, effective the 1st of July.
So move.
Second.
Thank you. Sean, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Gibbon?
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Landine?
Yes.
Next is to approve the hire of Ryan Carver as a full-time deputy sheriff for the sheriff's office at $23.11 per hour, effective the 26th of July.
Thank you.
Excuse me. How much per hour?
$23.11.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Second, Poppins.
Thank you. Sean, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Gibbon?
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Landine?
Yes.
And next is to approve the hire of Julie Morrison, paralegal for the state's attorney's office at $20.87 per hour, effective the 12th of July.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Thank you. Sean, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Gibbon?
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Landine?
Thank you.
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm requesting a 5-minute recess before we hit number 15.
All right. Take a 5-minute recess. We'll be back at 10:10. 16 quick if we can do that.
Yes. So before you is the listing agreement from NAI Sioux Falls for the transfer station property at 27988 471st Street near Worthing.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll offer a motion to approve it.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Sean, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes. Item 17, we've got, need to take some action on surplus property. Sherry, you want to cover that?
Can you help me pull that picture up? So we have parcel number, where is it at? 149,36,300. Yep. It is that sliver of parcel, or that sliver of land right along the river. I received a call asking if they could purchase that. We did not receive it by tax deed. We were actually deeded that parcel. So I told them that I'd find out if we wanted to surplus it and do open bid process on it.
What are the thoughts of the board?
Did we find out any reason why it was deeded to us?
Nope. Alls I've got is the deed.
And what year was that again, deeded to us?
Go back to the, no.
How much actual land is that? Is that a number of acres or what?
So there's the deed, and it was from 1920?
No, 42.
Yep, 1942.
Did the river change or
I think
something?
it did. I think there was, I've talked to the Register of Deeds and the assessor to see if there's any information. There was not. We just had the deed on there.
Interesting.
So I guess the
I would-
interested person is buying the parcel underneath of it. So that's why he wants the access for the river.
Would that take away from public access, though? I mean, if the county owns that, that's a public access beach, so I think we should keep it.
Is there any, can you pull up that map again? No. Is there, do we have access to it is the only, I agree totally if we have access to it. I don't think there's any access to it
Well, there'd be access from the water.
from the water. There's no easement access to it recorded?
Everything I got from the Register of Deeds was the deed.
You can't cut off access I mean,
Yeah, that's,
I mean, I had people walking through the back of my acreage when I lived out by Parker, fishing in my backyard, and I couldn't anything I could do about it. So,
we could always put a value on it high enough that if it doesn't bring it, then we don't have to sell it too, under
yeah,
surplus.
I just, think, I think like up at Lake Madison, for example, that boat dock has gotten so crowded in over what used to be Smith Park by private property owners that there is essentially no beach anymore, nowhere for people to enjoy the lake on that part of it, because everything's been crowded in by private property owners. So I guess I'm in favor of just keeping the property as county property.
I don't disagree in a lot of respects to that, Madam Chair. The only thing that makes me a little nervous is they could actually come back and say, okay, then take care of it. And that would be a nuisance for us to do so.
We're not doing anything now.
Yeah.
It's just,
I have no idea if it's, I would say, declare it surplus, go take a look at it, see if it has a value, and we choose to take it back off surplus.
I'm fine with that.
Or just go look at it and then come back and decide
Yeah.
if you're gonna declare it surplus?
Yeah, why
instead of
don't we
making
just
a
look
couple
at
different
it?
Motions.
So Madam Auditor, you're volunteering to go do that?
Let's go.
Okay. All right, let's proceed that way then.
All right. So we're not gonna take action today, so.
I move to table it until the next meeting.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Sean, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine.
Yes. Now we'll circle back to item 15.
Madam Chair, I have a few comments. I called for a recess to discuss with Tony Ventura this motion. And for clarification purposes, I'm somewhat, when I got here, read this thing and thought, thank you very much. My motion on this was going to be that last week we had Terry Dendalk here and public comment that talked about a proposed expansion on his particular dairy promotion. And I remember all of it, what he was talking about. So my motion this morning was going to be to refer his concerns dealing with the ordinance, on the odor control ordinance, back to planning and zoning for their discussion to see if there was some way that you could work with them. And now this morning, I see where we have a recommendation to remove the ordinance altogether. Well, that seems a little bit more than what yours truly was counting on. And I'm still back to trying to address Mr. Denduk's situation. Now, the odor control ordinance is a controversial one. And Tony Ventura and I have had many, many conversations on this situation. And sometimes we agree and sometimes we disagree. But Tony makes valid points on his points on the necessity for that. And on the other hand, we have other individuals that say that the ordinance is not a relevant situation, it's unenforceable, it's several other things. And at one time, we adopted it, and we used it consistently for anybody that was putting in CAFOs and into our county. So I am still not comfortable with making the recommendation. I just want to see Mr. Dendalk, who is planning to invest several $1 million potentially into our county, and get some resolutions to know whether he can move forward or whether he abandons his plans altogether. I've talked to the Dendalk family. They're a very, very good family, and they have an excellent dairy in case anybody has visited their facility down there. They run a quality organization. Commissioner Gibbons and I were down there and visited the place. So if they have plans for that, I believe it's our responsibility to at least give them a guide or a pathway to find out whether their future plans can become reality or whether they have to abandon them, or is there some compromise anywhere in between. And that's honestly where I am this morning. So I'm not going to say that we're going to come and remove this control right now. No, this is where I was when I came here this morning, so. Madam Chair, you can do what you wish with that.
Thanks, Commissioner.
I think my question right now is for Toby. Toby, do you, can you just real briefly explain if this tool is used, how that works and how it's supported, et cetera?
And clarify if it ever actually came into use for denying a parcel because of the footprint that it presented, so.
I don't want to.
I'm just, is it a tool that is actually been used, or is it just an informational packet item?
Or has it even been updated or maintained?
That's a long question to answer. So yes, it is a standard of the county. The applicants have to meet the 97% odor annoyance level at the nearest dwelling and 99% at the nearest municipality setback limit. Yes, we use it every time that we have an application come in. There is a possibility that it could be varianced if the applicant obtains waivers from those property owners within the setback, the odor annoyance setback. That has not occurred because we've never had anyone that exceeded the odor annoyance setback is always less than what the standard setback is. My understanding is, and I've never seen an application, I've never really directly talked to Mr. Dundalk, but my understanding in discussions with Commissioner Gibbon and Commissioner Schmidt is that this odor footprint would prohibit their expansion abilities. And so that was the request, or I believe, to put on the agenda to discuss, refer it back to the Planning Commission for discussion. I think the Planning Commission is going to ask is what kind of direction. The Planning Commission has sent up 3 or 4 times an ordinance to I guess, eliminate or delete the odor footprint. If you recall early this year, we did have another amendment that came before you to eliminate, I guess, the odor footprint. At that time, I had concerns with the implementation feasibility of it, mainly because of staffing concerns at SDSU. There was many times where we would work with staff at SDSU. Surrounding property owners would work with other staff at SDSU. There was, differing results and things like that. Since then, this summer, we've had 2 odor footprint KFOR requests that we've worked with SDSU staff. Dr. Thaler's done a great job. I have no concerns with the feasibility or any of those concerns. It's where, that was my initial concerns as staff. The rest of this, it's purely an ordinance policy that the boards have to decide if they think that this standard should be a standard requirement for the county. But again, my concerns are alleviated on the feasibility and the implementation of it.
Are they able to apply for a variance on that?
They would have to submit waivers from those property owners.
And that's the only way they would be able to get the variance?
Correct.
To your knowledge, Toby, have they made any applications to you or the planning department for this?
No, there's been no applications that I've received.
I mean, Commissioner Gibbon, I don't actually remember. We saw the site that they were thinking about. I don't recall the actual address. But I think there would be an opportunity for them because I didn't see any residents around in any proximity to where the land that they showed us. And I don't know what would the distance be? Would that depend upon the size of the facility?
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't know if they've already completed one and they know what that is. I don't know that. But,
Toby, can you calculate, since they have the biggest dairy there, it's a 10,000 head, what would the footprint, how far would that have to go out before? What kind of territory would they cover? How far would that odor footprint extend from their property if they had a 10,000 head?
Yeah, I can speak
facility?
to that. It varies on the size of the structures and the size of the footprint. And then we count existing operations. But my understanding was that they, and this is all anecdotal, I haven't directly talked to them, but it was that they were looking at a differing site outside of their footprint.
Oh, yeah, I think, I don't know, they were looking at doing research. So does that extend a mile or a mile and a half or something like that?
It varies. It varies on the operation and the species and those different types of things. I guess I'm willing to move it forward to the Planning Commission discussion, but I think the Planning Commission is going to ask is what's the direction? They've sent this 3 or 4 times up for elimination. At this stage, again, as staff, I have no concerns with the implementation or feasibility. If it is removed, I would just assume we don't fully remove it, that we include it as an application requirement, because I think the tool is useful for the public and for the applicant and for the boards to understand. But I think it probably better fits under the application process, because as a standard, they either meet it or they don't meet it. But under the application process, you know, we've always been questioned by the public that the ordinance says that we can increase the setback. Well, we've really never had any criteria for doing that. But I feel if we moved it into the application process, we then maybe could utilize that as a tool and work with neighbors and work with the applicants and say, hey, you know, and a lot of it's directional too. You know, the benefit that I see from the odor footprint is I get a good picture of where this odor is going, directional travel, and some of those issues. And that's based on wind and things like that. And I think that's very helpful. I think it's very helpful in citing in a tool. So I wouldn't, as staff, I wouldn't recommend that we get rid of it completely, but I understand the idea of moving it more to an application process as opposed to a standard.
That would make more sense to me as well. What are the thoughts of the board? We'd remove it from the ordinance and transfer it, and you'd make it part of your application process.
No, it would still be part of the ordinance.
Okay.
We would just, you would move it from a standard to just an application submittal.
Okay. Would we be okay on voting on something like that today?
No, you'd have to
We'd
refer
have
to the
to-
planning commission for a recommendation.
Okay.
And of course, we'd have to have a public hearing on this as
That's,
well.
yeah.
Yep.
So,
Madam Chair, I would agree with you that we refer this over. But we also have several individuals, I think Tony
Yep.
was up.
yep,
And
and I was gonna get
give
to
him an
that
opportunity and anybody else to speak.
on what the thoughts of the board were right now, but we can hear from the public right now on that. I'm gonna limit to 3 minutes per person, and please don't be redundant if anybody else is gonna speak. Maybe you're everybody's representative.
No, you're not that lucky today, sorry.
All
No,
right.
you want to go home.
Had to try, I had to try.
Try to keep me at 3 minutes. I have concerns about the odor footprint tool being sent back to planning and zoning for recommendations by removal of this county. We have an operator that is wanting leeway for his dairy expansion that is quite frankly spreading misinformation that he cannot expand due to the odor footprint model. The odor footprint tool is not preventing him from expanding his operation. If setbacks will change due to the odor footprint tool, he can obtain waivers from the neighbors, buy them out, purchase more property, drop a contract with them, or an easement or trade commodities, manure for setbacks. Asking for leeway on the odor footprint tool otherwise, they will go to another county. It really bothers me as if Lincoln County is being held hostage. So this operator can get his way. Remember, there needs to be due consideration for how the neighboring churches, properties, businesses, and other smaller farms have contributed to Lincoln County and economic growth and tax base for years and generations, not just how his operation has helped the economic development. Large animal operations and businesses bring in many woes to the already deficient roads in South Lincoln County. Fix the infrastructure in South Lincoln County or have these operations move into commercial and industrial areas where they have the infrastructure. It was also stated that this operation has over 66 employees. 66 employees in the country who probably don't live here, have a definite impact on traffic. An operation that runs 24/7, 365 is not basically not changing the community, is dramatically changing the community. Now, the question is how do they commute to other areas? How does it change the neighborhood? When a currently small operation stops at 6 o'clock, that's usually when the county shuts down here. And so when you add these large operations, they run all the time. Many of our ordinances are written for Lincoln County at a population under 40,000 people. Our population explosion in Lincoln County is a direct relationship with why it's harder and harder for these big animal operations to come in and set up and expand. But there seems to be a bias and discriminatory zoning that has emerged here in Lincoln County. Whether you live in an ag district or small farmer, large animal operation, or acreage owner or landowner with housing eligibilities, the same property rights should apply. Do not infringe on the generational farms and take away their ability for family farms to bring their sons and daughters home to Lincoln County and take away their economic opportunity. No one should be allowed to overwhelm another property with noise, noxious odors, fumes, gases, contaminated water, runoff, etc. Everybody's property rights need to be held equally. Otherwise, it is discriminatory zoning. It is the government stealing other people's property without conversation, leaving a landowner to only enjoy his house. Thus, I would like the commission to propose the Lincoln County Fairness Act that would state all future businesses and expansions would have to follow this. There will be no emission of dust, fumes, vapors, or odors that can be smelled or otherwise perceived from beyond a property line. I'd also like to bring out a concern about the planning and zoning board members. The board is bloated with ag and animal confinement operators or those who work directly with them. It was stated to a planning and zoning member not too long ago by a board member during a hearing that if you move to South Lincoln County, you get what you get, implying that non-ag people that move here are in the way of ag and have no rights. How about the citizens who've been here more than generations and you treat them differently? Another planning and zoning board member stated, if you move down south, you should be forced to take what your neighbors give you. Another board member continually refers to non-ag people as those people and you people. Carefully, your bias is showing. At the same time, the board member has given out misinformation during discussions, which was not corrected by the zoning director. Example, he stated that the 303 ordinance special permitted uses was deleted. It's still in the books. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Anybody else?
My name's Mike Peterson, 28732 473rd Avenue. I kind of heard about this, and I just want to say I live by a CAFO. They still stink. Nothing's changed. It goes wherever the wind was. 3 weeks ago, the week before the 4th of July, I have 2 grandchildren, and we had them for the whole week. 2 of them days, the wind was out of the northeast. It's not every day, but them 2 days, we could not be outside. And them kids love to be outside. So they come to Grandpa and Grandma's to be outside, and we couldn't be outside. So that's one thing I want to state. What was the second? Oh, I talked to someone who does service at this dairy, and he does service at several dairies, a bunch of them over by Vibert. He said this is the stinkiest, dirtiest one he's ever been on. He said it is unbelievable compared to the other ones. He said you go to the other ones and they are clean, people are clean, everything's, it's night and day is what he told me. So I just wanted to state that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Michelle Bittner, 46967 South Dakota Highway 44. I'm in here in opposition of the removal of the odor footprint tool from the 2009 revised zoning ordinance. I just feel that you need something, and I guess in hearing people today, hopefully something stays intact, because we need something. And I live in the country. I own 2.33 acres. That is my retirement. That is my property. I don't have money, I don't have time, and I don't have the energy to fight what's going on with planning and zoning and the commissioners. We fought for a rezone. It took time. It took time away from my family. It took time away from my life to do this. If you know you're going to allow these places to come in that are dangerous chemically, odorly, whatever, environmentally, stop allowing residents to be built in this county. They're everywhere. And this is our home. We don't want things that smell. We don't want things that add dangerous traffic. You are voted in by us, yes, to make decisions. But you have to be our voice too. And we are here telling you how we feel. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Come on up, Cindy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Cindy Thomas, 48131 Laurel Oak Lane, Canton. Want to just say thank you for your service. I know that you don't have an easy job. I hear what you said, Mr. Commissioner Schmidt, and so some of my speech might kind of counter-indicate just what you had said. So, but I do want to say some of these things. Back in 2018, the odor footprint tool was adopted into the 1209 CAFO ordinances. It was sold to this county, kind of by our planning and zoning director, that this would be a level of protection for landowners as a prediction tool of odors and also carry a setback that may be different than the setback set forth in the actual CAFO ordinance. This formula calculates animal odor emission factors, square footage of animal and manure areas, and it also takes into consideration the odor control factors used by the operator in odor reduction. Now, as this tool does not usually change the established animal class setback on a single facility, it does provide for a cumulative impact that several facilities may produce that are built in close proximity. For example, an operation with 12,000 dairy cattle has a setback of 3/4 mile according to our setback chart. But if you add another facility of, let's say, similar size to that, including its lagoons, you now have close to a mile or more of a setback in the odor footprint tool, and I think that kind of answers Commissioner Schmidt where you're going with that. But that only seems fair because now you're doubling the concentration of dust pathogens and odors. Now, I'm only speculating on this, but I believe that the cumulative impact part of the tool has not been used in Lincoln County. And that is wrong because it is part of the tool. And I need to point out that you cannot use this tool on only the new expansion part of a facility and not on the existing facility because it lends itself to the total odor emission factor, and that is the cumulative impact. But it seems now that this wonderful tool that was sold to our county as a way of citizen protection is now in jeopardy of being thrown away. So does Lincoln County really feel good about removing this layer of protection from its citizens owning property with housing eligibilities, small farms, homes, living adjacent to these large operations? Planning and zoning and this commission has worked hard and chosen protections for all citizens with options for confinements or expansions, and that fall short of the setbacks. Lincoln County is not preventing the building of a facility. They're not preventing expansion. They are not preventing multiple facilities. Waivers are still in place. It may mean that the operator has to give compensation for that waiver or buy them out or maybe buy more land just so that they fit. But an operation that asks this county to remove this layer of protection or ask for leeway, to me, poses a problem because it's kind of discrimination against all the citizens who are given this layer of protection. Just a few months ago, it was voted on and passed to keep the 1209 CAFO ordinances as they were, including the odor footprint tool. So what has changed? And I believe the discussion was to kind of leave things status quo for a while, a year, maybe two, cooling off period, step back, and think this whole process through. And I thought that this is the place that we had gotten to, as kind of a cool down period. So again, I ask, what has changed? I don't know why we're here doing this again. Is there an answer?
Cindy, we can't, if a person comes forward, Cindy, we can't stop the clock when people want to make major investments or they have an idea they want to expand. We didn't stop that. They have a right to find out what they want. So I can't answer your question other than that. There are progress comes, people come. We have opportunities we had a locker plant that came up, which we thought was going to be a good idea, but that was not shared by the residents of a community, and they referred it. So, but anyway, those are the things to me that change because our process with the growth of this place doesn't stand still.
And I totally understand that. I just really feel strongly that this layer of protection that was offered to the residents should stay in place because we still need to use that cumulative impact of that tool.
And I would like to just add that I know that the information you shared in regard to kind of taking a step back and catching our breath and letting both sides just kind of reevaluate was kind of where we left off. And you are correct on that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, we'll go ahead and move on to we're on 18. Our budget discussion. Sherry, are you gonna handle that?
What action, did we take any action
No,
on 15?
are you proposing any action, Commissioner Schmidt?
Well, like I told you, I came here today to take what this Mr. Dundalk had said and refer that to our planning and zoning department or the board to see whether there was some way in which he could get an answer to whether he wanted to move forward or not. And just for the record, this is not a dairy. This is not going to be another dairy. This is going to be, it's going to be a facility that will do research. And they have young calves under confinement, they have heifers under confinement, and they have adult cows under confinement. So this isn't going to be a dairy per se, this is going to be a research facility to try to find out. So I just want to refer this process so that he gets something. So that's all I'm asking for, to refer this from what Mr. Dundalk had said last week and put that over and to find out an answer for himself. I didn't intend to. We're not going to eliminate the odor control. We're not voting on that. We're not doing anything.
Well, no application's been made yet on that, so I think that's premature, and I don't think we need to talk about that. This is the odor footprint itself without respect to one business or another business. We're either gonna use it or we're not gonna use it, or we're gonna make it go through the application process. So if we're referring it for that reason, but not for some particular business, I think that's where we need to go. So are we referring this back to the planning commission or not? Do I have a motion to make a referral back to the planning commission to look at this?
Where does Mr. Dundalk sit?
I understand what you're saying, but
I'm not-
we don't have an application. We just need to look at this in a general, I'm not disagreeing with some of the things you're
I
saying,
understand.
but we don't have an application in front of us. So I'm not gonna change it for
I'll
one
leave it.
business.
I just say, if that's the case, you leave it as is, right now. Just leave it as is.
I'm fine with referring it back to the planning, but Commissioner Poppins, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts on this is it's a tool that hadn't been used. There was some issues with trying to get some response from SDSU. It seems like that's been resolved. I'm not sure at this point then what is broken on it. If you wanted to work, Commissioner Schmidt, with the potential applicant and see what errors that, or issues that specifically, and see if we have to make adjustments, but I'm not sure we know what adjustments need to be made at this point. Definitely doesn't sound like anybody's in the mood to take it away completely, and so I would ask that you work with Toby and see what issues specifically might have to be addressed with it, if any, and then come back to us.
I would be in favor of making it part of the application process instead of, as Toby was saying, part of the
Repeat that
standard.
again, Commissioner Landine, you
Yes.
making what part of the process?
Making it part of the application process, as Toby was suggesting. I could support that. Right now, I'm asking for a motion. Are we gonna refer this back to the planning commission to work with Toby or not?
I'm not offering a motion.
I'm not offering a motion.
I'm not offering a motion
So
either.
this item is handled by not doing anything.
It's dead.
Perfect.
Okay. Now we're moving on to our budget discussion.
Okay, so previously at the budget discussions, we wanted to touch base with John Rombo regarding his budget, and we were going to discuss the new position request for the planning and zoning and GIS. So that's where we're at today, is John's here to discuss his.
All right, I'm gonna have to leave at 11. I'm gonna give the chair to you when I leave. She's next. I'll give it
Who's
to,
past here?
all right, well, I'll give it to you when I leave.
Fine. Okay.
And then-
So, would it be wrong of me to ask that since you'll be leaving, should we discuss the wage process first, or?
Sure.
Sorry, Julia.
All is good. Okay, I'll be brief. I know that there's still a lot to get through. I just wanted to revisit staff increases just briefly. We've had a lot of conversation about this, but wanted to give you some additional information as well, and then follow up on some of the commissioners' questions from last week. So, first and foremost, Commissioner Gibbon, you had a question about Sioux Falls School District, what that percentage of increase would be for that staff. I did find the information for that. Sioux Falls School District is giving a 3.15% increase for their staff this year. There was a news,
Who was that? Sioux Falls School?
yep, school district, yep,
How much of an increase?
3.15%.
Okay.
And then Commissioner Aaron's, who's not present, he had some questions regarding market data and who we solicited, and then also had some questions regarding that data. It has been gathered, I won't specifically go through that. The average for 2021, like previously indicated, is 2%. Lincoln County employees received 1%. So there's that data. If you have specific questions, I'm happy to go through that. Next, collective bargaining agreement, we've talked about that increase for this year and the last couple of years have been 3.25. I also wanted to briefly touch on some additional factors to be considered, which is staff turnover. Last year, it was 17%. This year, currently, we're at 8%. From a national, local, and unemployment rate standpoint, we're sitting at 2.7% for Lincoln County. State as a whole is at 3.3% right now. Some good news is that local unemployment rate is back to where it was prior to COVID, so that's great news. We're bouncing back. Some additional labor market information. Recruitment is getting more and more challenging, to say the least. Currently, there's over 2,300 jobs available on KELOLAND. We are specifically competing with those positions in Sioux Falls. Not only are we competing against those positions in Sioux Falls, there's also that location barrier, which is also an additional challenge. To get more specific on the recruitment aspect, our applicant numbers are down. As of last year, we had an average of 24 applications per position posted. This year so far, we're down to 17. That is a decrease of 7 applications per position. That may not sound like a lot. However, some of our positions don't even get 7 applications. So that is huge for us currently. This year alone, we have been unable to fill 5 positions, and wage has been a factor in all of those positions. 5 positions are currently either being re-advertised for or will be in the process of re-advertised for. Here's a real scenario. So we had an applicant who was the top applicant in 3 different positions here at county. Was given an offer, they accepted the offer, and then 2 days before they were gonna start, they didn't start because they received a counter offer at their current place of employment. So we're not only competing against Sioux Falls and all those open positions, we're officially competing against ourselves. Another just real life example is currently we're 3 down at light equipment operator positions or equipment operators for the highway position, and soon, as you all know, it's going to coming into the winter months. The last 2 recruitment cycles, we were unable to find staff for that position. Talk a lot about recruitment. In fairness to our current employees, I just want to say when we talk about recruitment, the #1 strategy for recruitment is retention. So although I say recruitment a lot, it's also retention as well. So in fairness to our current employees, I want them to hear that as well. Lastly, I took all this information, just brass tacks, I put it together. Carter, could I have the screen? Great, thank you. I see me.
Great camera shot.
So what this illustrates, it's just a breakdown of specifically what I just went through. It goes through CPI data right now, which is 5.7%. It talks about the collective bargaining at 3.25. Talks about where our competitors were, which is 2%. Talks about we're currently behind market at 3%. Strictly just taking an average of all of that data I just went through and we've been talking about for the last couple months. 3.48%. So as you can see, the data supports at least a staff increase of 3.25. Questions for me?
What's our turnover rate currently?
8%.
8%. What's the, yeah, that's for the year. Excellent information. It's the reality of the market, why everyone wants to live here, why it's such a great place to live and work. And this is one of the consequences.
Yes.
One of the realities that we as commissioners are facing are as a group of individuals that think that we have bountiful money to pay for all these needs that we have to provide. Not wants, needs. And the reality is that isn't. I think last year we had approximately about a $800,000 increase in our revenue to make additional expenditures. Our housing of prisoners went up, I think in this year's budget, $500,000. That doesn't leave us much to pay for these increases and pay for improvements here and pay for that. So as much as I wanted, and I believe that we need to follow this, the reality is if we don't find additional funding, there's not gonna be this, or it's gonna be that and fewer employees. I talked about this, I think, a year and a half ago. People didn't like it, but it's a reality. It's costing more. We were blessed by very conservative when we were a mere 15,000 people in this county or so to get a tax freeze, and I'm throwing that number. I did not have that data exactly, but I'm estimating we were probably around 15,000 when we had a tax freeze by the state, and we were very conservative on our mill levy. We didn't have a lot of growth. We weren't changing. We're changing. We're not that same county. So it's imperative that the public, we educate the public on the things that we're doing are not wants, they're absolutely needs mandated by the state, the things that we have to take care of. So,
Can I just make a comment? So,
absolutely.
So to your point, absolutely, there's a lot of needs in the county, projects, what have you. To do the projects, we need the people, and to get the people, we need to pay our people. And so the data supports that, and I can appreciate we're under, tight financial restraints as a county. However, this is concerning at this point if we can't even fill our positions. So,
Yeah.
To your point, yeah.
Yeah, so it's.
Questions for me specifically about that?
But 10 days ago, weren't we talking about the cost to price index or something being 2.95? Am I correct on that?
So
Wasn't that
Consumer price
information
index.
you presented at that time?
Good question. So in March, yes, the consumer price index, which is the cost of goods and services, was 2.96 at the end of March. That has increased by that much. What's the difference between 5.7 and 2.96, whatever that is, in just a couple months time frame. So there has been a significant influx within the last couple months.
Yeah, at our last meeting, wasn't it? It was 5%, I think is what you had said.
Yep.
So, we've already decided to give, under the collective bargaining, the 3.25 for the cost of living adjustment. Everybody's cost of living adjustment, it's going up. It doesn't matter that you're wearing a bulletproof vest when it comes to cost of living.
Sure.
The price of milk for a law enforcement officer is the same as the price of milk for any other person in the county. So I'm supportive of the 3.25.
Oh, I'm very supportive of it, but the reality is I look at their budget and you start to look at how do we pay for things over in the next 5 to 10, 15 years. We're functioning on a reserve that is not keeping up. So, and we have huge capital needs that have to get addressed, not just personnel too. So,
What are you asking from us today? What are you looking for?
I think the auditor would like a number
I would
to
like
help
a
with the
number.
budget process.
Because my plan is to present the budget to you next week to have it published.
Right.
So to move it along.
Sherry, what's the actual numbers between 2.5 and 3.25? How much of a budget impact does that have overall?
Hopefully these are the new ones.
While you're doing that, Sherry, I'm gonna hand the chair over to Commissioner Poppins. I've got it.
Drive careful.
thank you.
Thank you.
Drive careful, Madam Chair. Before you leave, Madam Chair, I'll just say that I guess I'm at 2.96 or less, so I just want people to know.
2.0, 2.5, or 3.25.
What was that again, Sherry? Repeat that.
2.0, 2.5, or 3.25. Those are the three numbers that we agreed upon at the beginning of the budget process.
So with that, let's give them direction.
Yeah, it's either 2.
And see, now the advantage of having I'm just gonna respond to whatever you guys.
You got the matador treatment here. Well, the reason I asked Sherry, what is the difference? I'm just
The
curious.
dollars.
Just give me 2 seconds. 54,000.
Well, then I'll throw out there 2.5.
Okay, Commissioner Schmidt?
You know, we gotta move this. Do I think they deserve 3.25? Yes, but reality says 2.5 to me is what we can live with. We have individuals within our community that think that's too high. They think that, I think that.
I agree. There's a lot of individuals.
They believe that if you work in public service, you should take a vow to poverty because they don't believe everything is too much. So 2.5 is what we can live with. That's what we're gonna go with.
Okay, there's your direction. It will make our HR department even more challenging, but.
Yep. Mr. Poppins, to your point, the reason that I have always wanted to have a planning session or a commission to sit and do planning is just for that reason. Right now, we're rudderless. We're reacting to all kinds of situations, regardless if they're positive or negative. We haven't focused on what our future agenda is gonna look like and where we're gonna be 5 years from now, and how we're gonna pay for that. So, anyway, what else we got left, Mr. Chair?
Well, I think we're still working on budget.
Oh, you're not done. So John Peters has a new position request that he is going to discuss with you because you wanted more clarification on it from last meeting.
Hey, John, why don't you come up?
Morning.
Morning.
So I don't know, I need a planner position to help with floodplain administration, manage permits. What are the questions?
The question, I think, is just the justification of the position.
Yeah.
So, have our numbers gone up in applications? Is the severity or the level of detail that has increased so much, or what's kind of changed in the floodplain administration?
I think I'm just gonna answer yes to that.
Okay.
I think that planning has a lot of numbers. This position, administration of permits is really linked to planning and zoning. Every building permit, CUP, subdivision zoning proposal, not every, I'd say 50% of those have a floodplain element. It's not a isolated floodplain development permit. It's related to all others. In 2008, we were required to provide enforcement and certification of elevations by FEMA. In 2016, we got an inspector and a code enforcement full-time. This is 2021. 2 years ago, our planner was certified in floodplain management. That relieved a whole lot of the burden. We have new software that requires someone to enter in the data, coordinate it with the planning office permits. I issue a permit, and sometimes there's another permit required that I'm not aware of. This person that we're requesting would be housed in the planning office, supplemented 50-50 from GIS and the planning office. We really realized a lot when Joan left. There was 2 years that she was certified, and she processed most of the permits. I reviewed them when they were complex. It was a huge load off. She has left. We're finding, I think, similar to what I'm doing, 2 jobs, GIS administrator and floodplain administrator. She was doing double time. We're finding in the office that we have the support staff. So my support staff for floodplain administration is a code enforcement officer in the planning office and an inspector in that office. Also, half of my office administration is in the planning office. I sometimes, and have often wondered why I'm issuing permits or processing the mechanical parts of review. It's taking 80% of my time.
John, can I interrupt you for a
Yeah.
second? So that's getting to one of my questions. How
Yes.
much time would it take for you to analyze your time, what you do, what your assistants do, that go into either rezoning or building permits?
I don't think I could do that. I come to work in the morning and I do whatever's on my plate all day long.
I know that, but
That's-
so what I
yeah,
was
I know
going
what
to
you're
discuss
asking.
is,
know.
do we need to get to a format, we don't like taxes, but I think fees are acceptable if it's attributable to something that they're getting a service for. And this is a service that's required by an agency outside of the county, FEMA.
Right, this is federal.
This theoretically, in my mind, should be passed on then to the applicants that are needing that information. So my question is I think we do need to evaluate and find out how much of your services, how much planning is going. And because when we look at how much we get in tax revenue from a property, when we looked at a total increase of 800,000 last year in our budget, I would hate to know how little of that was actually by growth that's outside of municipalities. So we're not covering our costs for the development that's happening outside in the rural areas for the amount of cost that it takes to administer that.
I think there was a development fee suggested at the last meeting.
Okay.
I think I'd like to work with you on that.
Sure.
Not clear, lots of numbers, what would work for that. HR has talked to me about numbers to justify the position, I guess. The position already exists. It's a dual purpose in the GIS, not necessarily right. I started with that position because of mapping. Floodplain is map-centric. It evolved to administration of the permitting. We didn't have a lot of permits. To go back and, get numbers of all of that for 19 years or what, I will say everything's doubled in the last year, in 6 months, compared to a year. So, I mean, we're in an exponential growth pattern here. I'm not gonna bring anything happy to the table here, just like Julia. This is getting overwhelming in the planning office and in my office.
I would really
Yeah.
like to hear, and forgive me if you did discuss this last week, I had obviously my personal time, but I don't know what your thoughts on this. This is a fee structure thing, issue, I think, for me.
Well, I was just gonna ask how many fees can we initiate, and how many fees can we increase to try to offset the cost of, you know, the amount of work that's being required.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're whipsawed. I mean, you know, I don't know, Commissioner Gibbon?
I know I'm on record as saying I'm supportive of it last week, and I know that, again, it's another full-time position with more benefits and something I don't know if we can afford either right now. So I think you both make a very good point on your observation of it.
You know,
If I could, maybe. Toby, when's the last time we really adjusted our fee structure for permits, building, rezoning? Sorry for interrupting, I'm just trying to keep this
No,
moving.
I appreciate the conversation. This is something that needs to be discussed.
Yeah, and you know, and you weren't here last week because so John was gone, I had to justify this a little bit, but I think what the issue is that, you know, what I inherited a lot of this stuff is John's the floodplain administrator approving floodplain development permits. Him, the director of GIS, is approving my development permits, which works great, you know, but it takes a lot of his time. And the idea of this is it would be a half position, half planning and zoning and half GIS, to bring that person in so that eventually we can bridge this so it all moves into my department as far as this, because I think all development permits should fall under planning and zoning. The answer, get to your question, Commissioner Poppins, is since I've been here, we've not. I mean, the fees would stay the same. Our lowest fee is our zoning permit, that's $50. Our highest permit is $350, that's our rezoning and our plating fees. And those by no means, those are reasonable fees for the public, because we by no means make any money on any of those permits. On building permits, an average house is $1,200 building permit. Commercial buildings average is about $4,000. And Julie, you know, John and I have met with Julie, and she did ask to put some fees, you know, some statistics together. And I looked at permits and compared them and things like that. But this one I think is the most interesting that I found. And this goes from the first of this year till yesterday, this year, and then the first of last year till this time last year. So last year at this time, we had revenue of $85,469.06. That's at our half point time. Right now, we're at $212,482.71. That's $127,000 more dollars. And I just gave you this, these aren't extraordinary fees. What the issue we have is volume. I mean, we have so many applications that it's, you know, that it's limiting our ability or our time and ability to do the things we need to do the customer outreach, to make sure that, you know, that everything's done properly. So that's really your question. And right now, I'm humble, we're thin right now. As we said, we lost our planner, you know, she moved on to other things. And I'm one of those that Julie mentioned. We advertised, we can't fill a position because that person wanted to be at a midpoint, you know, which I have to look at equity within my department. You know, I can't bring in somebody that's just graduated from college that we're paying a midpoint when I've got people who have been there for years that are doing, you know, excellent duty. The last part of that is we're thin. It's me, it's our admin assistant, and we have we have a code enforcement officer, building inspector, and a building inspector. So John and I are reviewing all permits. The last, when I came down here, and I just approved one when I was sitting here, is we're up to 300 permits. That's more total than we had last year, you know, total. So I mean, you know, the volume is there, and that's the concern we have. We're humble. We don't want to ask these positions. We do what we can. We try to get by with what we can, and we will. You know, if you can't find it within the budget to do this, John and I will continue to work, and our staff is terrific. You know, we've got a great team up there that's, you know, steps up and does the things that they need to do. But that's where we're at, and that's really the justification for where it's at. But with that, we have to answer your questions that you have for us, so.
Give me a quantitative number of how many permits are we talking, not dollars, how many permits are we talking in a year on average? I'm trying to extrapolate how many would we have to go up by $50, $100 to cover the cost for the additional person?
Okay, I'd rather do an analysis than on the spot of that. I mean, we could tell you, I mean, what we think it needs to be is what cost is.
Is there any support to considering that, to offset this additional person?
Well,
Because I think the workload is there, it's just.
Yeah, I know.
I definitely think you should do this, but in regards to this, you know, what they've talked about, you know, it's one thing to accommodate, and for the two of you to want to say that you'd pick the workload up, there is also so many other things, Toby, that's on your plate that you have to guide and direct for future planning, for all of the different areas that people want to come into. This is a tsunami. I mean, this isn't going to end. And we got to have personnel to try to address it. And how do we compensate, as you said, Commissioner Poppins, how do we pay for this additional staffing is a question for anybody because our resources are so limited. So I would say on a two-front, we should add, or look at this request in a positive fashion and add it, but also we should kind of have Toby go back and work on redesigning our fee structure to better accommodate, some of the added costs that we have. And at the same time, not price ourselves out of the market, but if we haven't changed anything for so many years, we must be a pretty good bargain down here.
Yeah, I mean, we try to do the best customer service we can do.
It's just, there's a fee structure to build anywhere.
Sure.
We have certain costs. I don't know that it's the general taxpayer's responsibility to do floodplain management for somebody that's either rezoning or planning a home or a business out in the country. I think it's a fair distribution of the cost scenario to them, but I could be wrong. But Toby, if you wouldn't mind doing that, I think, John, you've got verbal commitment to add this position.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because the workload's there. Anything else, gentlemen?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so then we've got John Rombo here to go over his general government building and the egg buildings budgets.
Hey, John.
Good morning.
Good morning. I apologize about last week. I had every intention of being here and family emergency came up, so just couldn't make it happen. And I do appreciate the fact that I got invited back because I do want to be here because I do need some opinions on some stuff. So I'm going to back up and say after last week, I was listening in on the whole conversation, so I do have answers to any questions that you guys did have about my budget. And I will tell you that I've also sat down and kind of reworked my whole budget to kind of, Sherry and I have been talking and relooking at a different way of looking at how I'm perceive my budget and how I come up with a number. So I did kind of modify quite a bit, I think, in a favor that you guys would appreciate because I removed a few things. But so I'm going to start off at the top. My first item is insurance. I think I would have had $1,500 is what I briefed last week. I actually moved that
John,
up.
hang on one second. Sherry, what page is John's budget on? Do you know?
At least you brought your book. I didn't bring my book.
I'm sorry.
Hey,
I don't
I
like that
forgot
look,
it
but
this morning. I apologize to the commission.
here, we can share, Commissioner Gibbon.
No, that's fine. I'll be a good listener.
No, here. Like a teacher coming to a student. I promise to be better.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. All right, John, excuse me for interrupting.
So the first thing is insurance. I think I had $1,500 on my proposed budget that you guys probably have in front of you. I'm actually going to increase that to $2,000 because I do want to move forward with the pickup and I'm hoping I can justify that, and I know my insurance will be a little higher because of it. The next item is professional fees. I think I might have had $45,000. I'm decreasing that down to $40,000 because I'm basing it more off of a 3-year average. And that's kind of how Sherry and I want to look at this. And I'll back up and I'll say, I think my budget of most budgets is pretty reactionary a lot because if I need more supplies, I got to have the supplies to make it work. If I have a building problem, I got to have the building and maintenance dollars to make it work. So I've always left it a little bit inflated to absorb that. But now I'm going to base it more off of a 3-year average and hope, even though I know the cost of stuff is going up, that we will fall within means. Otherwise, we'll have to supplement my budget sometime next year. And I guess that's the way we'll do it. If I can't make it happen and it's emergent and a need, then we'll have to supplement it. So I did decrease that to $40,000. Repairs and maintenance, I put it at, it's slightly above the 3-year average, but I anticipate that need, but it's, when I say slightly above, it's probably $3,000 more than the 3-year average, and I put that at $50,000. Supplies and materials, was also an increase over 2020's budget, or 2021's budget, just because I estimated a shortfall and I anticipate inflation. And, well, actually, my 2020 budget was huge. I went way over budget because of, obviously, I had all of the COVID expenses on there that we were funded for, like sanitizers and whatnot. But items like rubber gloves and paper products, they're still high. You know, they're just, the numbers haven't come down to the pre-COVID numbers yet. They've come down some, but not to that level. So I do believe that's a very accurate number for 2022's budget. Travel and conference, which we used to be, was combined into one thing. I gave this a lot of thought. I want to leave that at $1,000 for travel and conference. I will always have to go to the safety benefits meeting, which will have hotel expense, vehicle expense, and whatnot. So that's already going to be, it's mandated that somebody from here goes. So we as a safety committee sit down and decided kind of, we used to have 4 or 5 of us go. We're kind of making it to where 2, maybe 3 people go. But I think that's something that I probably is fairly critical that I go to. So I put that actually at $1,000. That might be a little overzealous, but there's ample training for my staff throughout the year, and I want to have the ability to maybe make, $100 or $200 add to go to some kind of training if I need to. But that also goes with then training. I also left at $1,000. So what used to be, I think I had $2,500 in the combined category. I went down to $2,000 with it subdivided into 2 categories.
So John, on that, you're saying that your certifications are gonna be 1,000, then your travel is gonna be 1,000?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And I could give you this if.
Nope, that's fine.
Okay.
I mean, yes, give me it, but.
Okay. So utilities is one of those things that since I've been here, my utility number was here. And it's hard to say from one year next because we could have a hard winter, we could have a hot summer, what my utility budgets are gonna be. Well, I think in the past, my number was like 175,000. I put that down to 130,000. That's on a 3-year average. I know this is a hot summer, but from what I could tell up to this date, I'll probably be okay with that. So it's gonna be tight. That'll be a real close number. So that takes us to building and structures. And first item on the list is demolish the old jail. I know that's been talked about, him hauled. I've had it on my budgets before. We've pulled it off the budgets. We had funding before. In particular, I think what happened with when the funding was there, we had just bought the 4-H land. I was a little devastated that you guys chose not to, as a commission, to not tear it down, but I also had to build the parking lot immediately. Well, I think from the whole buildings committee, regardless where we land with how we adjust the courthouse needs, the court facility needs and everything, the old jail's gotta come down. It's only getting more expensive each year to tear it down. I think it's time to say, let's tear it down, even if we just have it as just land for now. We just fill it in with dirt or the proper material. I do think it's time that we make that commitment. But if you choose not to do it, we can put it off. I don't have any problem putting it off if that's how you guys want to land it, but I think we're just putting off the inevitable. My next item is update engineering plan, mechanical engineering plans. That's more electrical. Since I've been here, we've been modifying a lot of electrical things in each office. Well, my plans are getting a little bit confusing, so I want to work with electrical engineer and just re-get my prints put up to where they're up to date. $6,000, that's what they said. I think that's pretty fair. The next thing is a stairwell painting project. As you know, or I hope you know, that most of the painting that we've always done around here, we do with my staff. It's typically an overtime thing. But I've always done the math, and typically my staff, who, two of which were used to be professional painters, could typically do it on overtime cheaper than I could hire it done. But this said, the stairwell project would be a project that would be pretty difficult for us to do in-house. So it's needed. There's a lot of scratching. There's a lot of just peeling paint and whatnot. The stairwells need to get done. So that's why that's on there. Next thing that I had on my list from last week was a carpet and painting project for the sheriff's office. I put a 0 in there. Obviously, until we know what we're doing, if the sheriff's office is moving out, we don't need a funded carpet replacement there right now. What I mentioned last week was, as we do know how we move forward, that would be my next priority for carpet replacement in this facility. I'm hoping that as we move forward with whatever the final solution is to the courts building, and that if that office becomes vacated, I would be able to recarpet and paint those prior to putting somebody else in it. That's as simple as that. Next item is the bat guano removal and insulation replacement. I removed it off next year's budget because I'm getting quotes right now, and we're gonna try to get that done in the next month. Part of this whole process, you know, when we started the whole building needs thing 9 months ago, whatever it was, you know, at the time, my brain was telling me we were going to probably come up with some kind of funding to do some of this stuff emergently. Get on it, get it done. Well, that's kind of stalled out. We don't really know where we're going. It's hard for me to, at the time, I thought, well, who knows what's going to happen to the old facility. It's hard for me to think about spending $20,000 to $30,000 on something that the building might go away. So I've kind of dragged my feet on it. Obviously, it needs to be done, so it's getting done. I do not have it in this year's budget to do it, but we'll hopefully can absorb it with the budget money I have. But like I said, I'll be approaching you probably within the next, probably 2 commission meetings with the 3 quotes. I've got 1 quote. I'll have another one on Monday, and I'm having a hard time getting a quote from a 3rd vendor.
How many times, John, we've removed bat guano from that thing about every year? There was a major cleanup, I think if I remember right, like 15 years ago. Yeah. We did the bat mitigation. We put the cones up. We tried to get rid of the bats. We sealed off holes. We've had 2 bats in the building since then. We had one in the wintertime. And when we did the bat mitigation, we did it in November. We thought that, you know, we might be entrapping some bats. We might have some bats when spring comes migrate out into the building. And so the first one we got in February, I was, okay. Well, we've since had another bat about a month ago. Obviously that bat, I would think, had left the building at some point and has returned, so there must still be a point of entry. When we did the bat mitigation, we chose not to pay the excess for a guarantee. So we're kind of at that point. Woods, or I can't think of Woods' bats part of their, but Woods Roofing is one who did the work. They do have to remove the cones. They have 5 or 6 cones up yet. What I'm thinking I'm gonna do, whether they get the bid for cleanup or not, I'm gonna make them come and pull their cones out. And if we have to pay them additional money while they got lifts here, they'll do another look-see and just say, you see another point of entry that we missed. I don't know. I kind of where I'm landing with it. Again, I assume there's still a point of entry, and I would agree from talking to multiple facilities managers on this side of the state, it's just a hard problem to completely eliminate, especially when you're dealing with a 120-year-old building. So, so that's kind of where we're at with that. So that's been removed out of the budget. The heating addition for the off-site building, I still would like to, so that's the old weed shop. And I know it was discussed recently that we should consider surplusing the old weed shop. It is being utilized by both the sheriff's department for a year-round need. For most of the time I've been here, it's been cold storage for me, and also cold storage for the other half was cold storage for my furniture and whatnot, and also cold storage for Harold, the emergency manager.
We have one, in the highway project, we came up with 2 heaters that were undersized. We had those available rather than just surplus them and eliminate them. I thought, well, why not put them to good use and heat that facility even if we heat it to 40 degrees? This said, because then the sheriff's department would be able to utilize it underneath of a good temperatures in the wintertime. And then because of the fact that we had absorbed snow removal here and I have the skid steer here and I don't have heat at the old jail, I kind of need to have a place just to get equipment in to let it thaw off after doing snow removal. I know it was brought up last week, well, why don't we utilize the highway shop? I mean, I suppose we could put the pickup plow out there, but I can't drive a skid steer out there. It's just, I mean, I'd have to transport it. It's just, you need to have the skid steer here to when you're coming in at 4 in the morning to do snow removal, it's within a couple blocks of here. You know, so ideally what I brought up a couple weeks ago when you guys talked about surplusing that property, what I guess I foresee in a long-term plan would be to have some kind of a storage place closer to within a city block of here, but that facility still works for it, and I don't think that's a bad investment of $8,000 to heat that. So again, if you want to strike it, I understand. Go ahead and strike it, and it won't hurt my feelings none. So the next item on my list from before was demolish the abated property at the airport. As you know from previous meetings, that's still under, we can't legally do that yet. So that completely got taken off the list. So that's zeroed out. So that brings us, okay, so I'm gonna back up. Something that I did not approach, but I think it should be looked at is we still have structural issues to the old courthouse. We have rotting rafters. So I think it's gonna fail and fall in. I don't know. I doubt it, but it's gonna sag, it's gonna leak worse. We still have a leaky roof. Much as I said earlier, I didn't know how the whole fix, but now that we're looking at other options of off-site, it doesn't look like that's gonna be absorbed in any project of that sort, so we probably better be looking at fixing it somehow. So, like I said, I did not have those numbers listed in here, but I do have, if you can put this on here. This was what ARC Inc. came up with in the building analysis. And, you gotta have a hard time seeing that, I guess, but basically what they had for to fix the structural supports, it came out to about $38,400. That's what they estimated as a repair cost. Then the attic windows were leaking. That was one of the places we thought we might be getting water penetration, and they had an estimated cost of $10,000. Also then sealing up those window joints up there was another $6,200. The roof repair itself, they listed it as $10,000. And then basically perimeter sealing and getting the rain gutters down, they listed as another $11,000. We know that we obviously had water penetration in the basement. So we do have to get some better drainage around the building. These numbers I'm gonna utilize ARC Inc.'s expertise and say they must be fairly accurate. I don't really have a opinion whether it's elevated or not. But if I were to add, so we're pulling, the expensive part of that was a renovation of the courtroom of that whole $1.6 million project or whatever. And also upgrading the HVAC system to make it better air. I'm not saying we should jump and spend $1.6 million, but maybe we should consider getting these things resolved in the next year. And if I guess I could do some quick dumb math, and that's 48, 58, 59, 69, about $75,000. Could do all or part of it. I think the rafter stuff and obviously the roof fit repair should really be looked at. If you go back into their notes, It wasn't just rafter repair, but there's some cracking going on at joints, and some of that was gonna be rectified by putting, steel plating over those joints. You know, again, from talking to structural engineers, do they think it's gonna fail tomorrow? They would doubt it, because we don't really know how long these cracks have existed. There's the roof rot, that's a different story. That will have to get addressed. So I guess I'll leave it up to you guys. Do we want to add that $75,000 back onto my budget and address it? Do we want to make it emergent and try to get it pulled off as soon as possible and supplement this year's budget if I need to? I mean, that's the thing, is I've needed some kind of input from you, the board, for a while. I guess I just should have came and asked, but I don't really know where to land with it, to be honest. I don't know how emergent to make it.
What's your current budget looking like?
How is your budget this year? Are you running under or over, or where are you at?
I'm sitting really good right now, but I've got a lot of stuff coming in the pipe.
When you say a lot of stuff,
So I'll be approaching you guys about the HVAC improvements to this side of the building, which I'm hoping to I've got to talk to Bill about a few things on it. That's gonna,
I think, guys, I think we need to stick with our current budget discussion. And if John wants to come in and talk about, the budget discussion that we have. And if John wants to come in, because we don't have any of this information on the agenda.
It's a generalization to even think about putting it into an emergency situation versus budgeting into next year's. There wouldn't be any more detail.
But we're 6 weeks into the budget process and now we're just now hearing about it.
so here's what I would say. I've cut a lot of things out of this budget that you guys already had in front of you. I think this $5,000 put back into it is still, my bottom line is gonna be less than what it was 2 weeks ago.
My thought is we're not tearing the building down tomorrow. The roof has got issues. The public hasn't given us the go-ahead to go and do anything drastic. So I think we've got to repair it. That's my thought. So whether you put it into next year's budget, or if you want to see if your budget wants to absorb it this year, I'm not going to disagree with that. I think you need to put it into the budget. I'm not sure where the money exactly is coming from, but we've got to put it in the budget.
Again, I think from the number you guys had from me up to 2 weeks ago, my bottom line will be less as after today, even with that $75,000. So is that?
Yeah, I would say.
Okay.
You're not doing any significant, it's just fixing what's existing. What do you
So.
think, gentlemen?
Okay.
It is what it is. It needs to be done. I don't know, if you gotta prioritize between tearing down the old jail and fixing the roof, there's no question.
You fix the roof.
You gotta fix the roof.
Yeah. The jail's gonna sit there and deteriorate. Yes, it costs money, but, money isn't there.
So that said, do you want me to strike the old jail completely out of the budget, or just?
At this point in time, with the way the budget looks right now, John, I would say yes.
All
Sad
aboard?
to say,
All right.
I'd like to see it done, I'd like to see parking lot, but we don't have the funds to.
We have no.
I didn't put a
I
parking
agree.
lot into this year's budget,
We don't have the money for it.
so, all right, I will strike the old jail, and I'll put the $75,000 in for building repair then.
Where are you at on the pickups, John?
I'm coming to that yet, sorry.
Okay.
Improvements other than, I had already removed the evidence. So the Veterans Memorial, I still have $25,000 on it. I've talked to Sherry. It's all dependent on the fundraising. I know Dave Gillespie has approached me, and I know there's some steam again on moving the thing. I've had it in my budget off and on, and it never seems to happen, but and whether we have to have it listed in the budget, if monies are donated, I don't know. So I still listed it as $25,000 in the budget, so it's at least there.
But on that note, we haven't listed the $25,000 of income that he's saying that we're gonna get as a donation for moving it. So that would be a wash.
Could be a wash.
So we could strike it off of this list is what I
Well,
think.
not if you're planning on doing it.
Well, all right, yeah, I
We
don't
just
know.
need to add the income to the other side.
As I have always said, whatever the veterans decide to do, it just, the thing has changed back and forth. Commissioner Schmidt, I don't know if he's frustrated or not yet, but he has worked diligently to try to get it moved. And I think he's gotten one answer one year and another answer.
Well,
the
it
next.
changes about every other month.
Well, you know, I'm on board with doing it. I just want to do
Yeah,
it
I would
legally
say-
and by the
I
right
would
ways.
say strike that out because if the alternate plans for the courtroom space materializes from out there, we could certainly accommodate that, and they could leave their memorial right back here.
Gone. There you go.
Okay. The next thing is a crack seal, that's gotta happen, so that's $6,000 for sealing up that parking lot behind Sturvins. Evidence storage for the system for the sheriff's office, I removed that was $60,000, because obviously, hopefully that'll be added to whatever the fix is to the new building. Fence around the off-site storage, that's also the old weed shop, I struck that because that was kind of a sheriff's need, and that'll also go away if pending on that, so. I don't remember what that number was, it might have been $20,000, I think, or something, but, so both of those things are zeroed out. So furniture and minor equipment. I had $60,000, cause as you know, I wanted to get another pickup. And I was gonna put a snowplow in the pickup. Now, if I'm gonna continue to do snow removal like I have, I'm looking at some options of maybe bidding some of it out. I've gotta have at least some redundancies for doing it. Once we inherited, or I shouldn't say inherited, once we got the transfer station red pickup, which is very dated, very wore out, it's got 200,000 miles on it, is just not really a good, and as you know, if anything's gonna tear a pickup down, it's snow removal. That's the hardest thing you could probably do to the transmission, to the motor, to the whole thing.
Well, that's Harold's old truck.
Yeah, that pickup's not an answer for that.
Good shot.
Now, what I would probably do is I would look at taking the plow off of that and put it on the pickup that I just got from the highway shop. Now, that's a half-ton pickup. It's not really the best solution for a snowplow, but it would just be my backup snowplow and maybe doing this building. I currently can do this building now with the skid steer and a snowplow. So I think Commissioner Landine mentioned, well, we just bought a snowplow this year. Well, that was for the skid steer. My problem I ran into is the two most qualified people for running the skid steer as a snowplow were doing the airport. That was me and John Hansen. Tom Hankey has now, we've put him on the skid steer quite a bit this summer. That's the place to learn to run the skid steer the best. I think he could probably handle it. So I could do without the snowplow altogether. I have a feeling that it's sooner or later gonna be hurtful, but as far as the pickup needs, I need the pickup. And so
John, quick question, would you use if we did purchase a new vehicle with a new plow, would you utilize it out at the airport?
Well, what I'm looking at possibly doing is just prioritizing that we as county staff just do the runway and the taxiway and around the pumps, and then I might bid out the work in front of the hangars. It's not as emergent, and it's just, that's
So
what's
would that plow be useful for that or not? Or is
So
that-
I need to have a pickup plow, yes, in addition to the tractor that's there. Sometimes the pickup plow is just the best tool to use. Sometimes the tractor's the best.
There's a lot of speed to it.
Right.
If
So,
you get the
but
right plow where you got angles that
if
you
I
gotta
make,
cup.
if I make that change and if I try to do all of this courthouse facility with just the skid steer, then I don't need to have a plow on the second pickup.
I wouldn't recommend putting a plow on the half-ton pickup.
It's a half-ton pickup. It's got 150,000 miles. It was great that it was brought up last week. Why don't I just always take a highway shop piece of equipment? It just, once Terry's done with it, it's got some age. This pickup was a good pickup, I felt, because it was the one that.
Yeah, I'm just suggesting that we not put a plow on a half-ton pickup and think we're gonna rely on it. It's gonna be, the frames on these pickups are not built.
I would
that
agree.
kind.
I think it's gonna break the pickup down in time, but it was,
Before the year's over.
So is
So-
the only real option then, John, is to get a vehicle, because you have taken on the responsibility of the airport. Now, if that's gonna get used for out there, there's no doubt in my mind you need to utilize a vehicle that's reliable, because that has to get done. And if you're utilizing, because of speed, if it can be done on light snows or whatever the case is, and if you're looking at, subbing out in front of the hangars, which I think would be a great idea, because that's not an emergency situation. But the taxiway runways gotta get done, and you gotta do them relatively quickly, and if you're trying to cover the courthouse and they're on a snow event, time's an issue.
right. That's always my battle is trying to get it all done in the timely manner I need to with the staff I have, but
Second question, have you checked to see if you can even get equipment pickup by this, January or February or?
well, I mean, I was gonna do off-state bid.
Yeah,
in the
I don't know
spring.
if it's available.
I
so-
know.
Oh,
and
not until next spring.
Obviously, I'll have to live with the red pickup until it happens.
Okay.
Good point.
I've put a lot of money already into John's old pickup this summer just to,
Nurse
keep
it
it usable.
along.
yeah, that's why it sits here a lot because I went for about a month with no air conditioning. This hasn't been a good summer to use a pickup without air
I
conditioning.
had a pickup once, it was best just leave it at the mechanic shop. I knew it would be fixed when I needed it. 'cause it
Yeah.
Had to get done all the time, so.
And that's about where that pickup's at, to be honest, so,
So gentlemen, I know it seems like a hefty expenditure, but some of our requirements are to get that airport done. I guess I am supporting that we make that purchase, because otherwise we're gonna be paying repair bills to fix frames and we don't I don't think spending money that doesn't at all return us anything.
well, so,
But just a comment, Commissioner Poppins, it is imperative that you do clean your runway and everything else, because if we're ever gonna get an instrument approach, part of that is the grading on how fast you clean out your runway, how much accommodations you make. The FAA also has rules on that, so while that may not be part of the budget process, but cleaning off that facility is strategic for the long-range development of the airport, so.
Yeah,
So
no,
why wouldn't you take a pickup out of the airport fund and then leave the pickup there?
Cause I don't wanna leave a $60,000 pickup sitting up there.
I don't think you need a $60,000
Yeah.
pickup, but
You need a vehicle that's reliable.
that's,
there is a pickup sitting there, and that's John Hansen's original pickup.
Yeah,
So, and it's got a snow plow on it also, but the only thing that gets used that's by Legacy Air to do just their parking lot. And it was brought up last week, well, why not just have a pickup that sits there, because that stuff just doesn't run well if it's not being ran all the time, I mean, that pickup, we struggle with it too. I don't deal with the maintenance on that, Legacy does, I really have nothing to do with that pickup. It's county property, but I've never done
I
it.
mean, you could do this several different ways. Personally, I like a vehicle that's reliable, that you can rely, because the airport has to get done, and we gotta get the courthouse opened up on snow
Right.
events.
So I had $60,000 and it was right. I think I talked to Terry, I think I could probably get off-state bid a pickup for like $35,000. Now, I don't wanna have $0 in my equipment budget, cause I'm still taking on all this additional maintenance needs and there's gonna be things I need. So I was thinking I would use $5,000 for that. So if I get a plow for it, let's say $5,000, I could probably punch in the number of $45,000 instead of $60,000 and make it happen. That's gonna be tight, but that's probably pretty accurate.
What do you think, gentlemen?
I'm okay.
I'm okay with that.
So you
But
got,
I do think we need to, so we don't end up spending money on these old pickups. If we're not utilizing them, let's get rid of them, so we don't end up sticking trannies and
So we're putting $45,000.
45.
45,
equipment. Yep.
Used vehicles,
for a pickup and then. the
Yeah, it's
rest of
45
for
total.
miscellaneous
yeah,
equipment.
35 for the pickup,
Yeah,
$5,000 for a plow,
yeah.
and $5,000 just for general equipment tool needs that I might have this next year.
So we got 45,000.
used vehicles are getting quite expensive too. so,
Oh, they're
I mean,
not,
Oh, they're
and that's,
I talked to someone last week, and they were thrilled to death. They got 4 new pickups in. They don't know when they get the next one.
Well, individuals are getting more money 9 months after they bought it than what they paid for
Yeah.
9 months.
So, to be devil's advocate, if we're saying that we need a pickup for snow removal, then how much use are we gonna get out of 3 pickups in one department?
But you gotta remember, we're managing we'll still be managing for sure 2 properties, one in Lennox and one here. And I've got lawn mowing and that going on at all facilities right now. And so we've done the 2 pickups. It's hard to do just 2 pickups with the 3 of us.
It's either that or we sub back out to not doing the snow removal and that kind of things. It's just, you can't put things on and off and all that time stuff too.
So, for instance, I don't drive this would potentially become a vehicle I would drive more regularly. I cannot tell you how much I make trips to places in Sioux Falls with my personal vehicle. Because it makes no sense to me to have a pickup here, run and get something, come all the way back here and have it be 3:30, 4 in the afternoon just to wrap up a couple things and go home for the day. So I would say probably once, twice a week on average, we're picking something up from Sioux Falls. And it's typically me who does it because I live in Sioux Falls. And it's typically me doing it with my personal vehicle.
If there was an option to shut the airport down, I'd say maybe we should consider that so we didn't have the expenditures, but that's not an option. We're gonna keep it functioning. It's a very good airport, one of the busiest, if not the busiest small airports in the region and as along the state, so.
There's some inaccuracies to these budgets because we just absorbed this and we're still learning too, I mean, right now I'm absorbing all the mileage out of my budget for the courthouse. Some of that probably should be billed and definitely should be billed to the airport. Some of it should probably be billed to ag buildings. I don't know.
Yep.
But I'm not separating it out right now. It's just easier for me to dumb it down and just pay for it out of this budget until I really get a feel for how I can track it.
Okay. Sherry, any other question?
Nope, now we're moving on to egg building.
So ag buildings, insurance is 0. Fees and contracts, we still will have some expense with IMEG with all these buildings going on, so I put 10 grand on there for that. Rentals, I actually, since this last couple days of the achievement days going on.
John, can you shove that up a little bit so we can see it?
I was more using it for myself than you guys, sorry.
Thank you.
So, I put $5,000 on there because I do anticipate a greater need of rental. We're gonna have to have achievement days in Lennox next year. It's just gotta happen. This was really difficult to run this year, back and forth. And there's gonna be additional rental needs, whether it's porta potties or whatnot. We're not gonna have everything functioning out there to do it. So, that's why I put that in there. Repairs and maintenance, I don't have a 3-year average, but I foresee that's gonna be very close to that number. Supplies and materials also, again, I'm frugal with it. I've got the number in there. We're still needing stuff to put in these buildings, so that's why I left that number at the same. Utilities, I left that the same because we just don't know where we're gonna land with the sewer project, with the water project. It's, right now, I think I'm gonna spend about $12,000 this year for utilities there.
But utilities, isn't that the utilities and not the improvement?
No, but I don't know what it's,
That would just be the electrical bill, not utility costs.
so, it's just, the utilities is, we're,
That's infrastructure.
yeah, it's changing.
The utility line that we use throughout the budget is for the lights.
Yeah,
Right.
but isn't
No.
he talking about bringing
What's like,
additional
Right,
cable?
so that would be improvements.
Yes, it'd be improvement.
no, I'm not talking about improvements. I'm talking about, so it's utilities is water, sewer, lights, garbage,
Internet.
and internet and all that.
So it's $20,000 a year for all these
It's gonna be about $12,000 this year. We just added garbage finally for the first time, which is, I know, only like $60 a month. Yeah, so could I cut a couple $1,000s? I probably could cut.
Well,
I just,
I wanted to make sure that your utilities, because you're talking about running underlying cables, that you're talking about. the
Yeah, that's where
Right.
I'm confused. This is
I
just
wanted to
for
make
the
sure you're
electrical
not-
bill and the water bill?
yes,
The
that's what this is
20,000.
for, yes. And because I have some unknowns, because we're hoping to maybe tap on, all I said is, if we tap on the city of Lennox sewer, I know that's a big wish right now, there's gonna be an expense to that, a monthly expense. I honestly, I don't care. We could set it at $12,000 and supplement me if I fall short. $12,000 is probably what I'll spend this year.
Is any of that money, can we use, if we have this money available from that recovery plan for sewer, water, that can cover that, correct?
So put it in there,
Put it in.
because we should be receiving that funding next year.
That's all I'm
No.
seeing is I put it,
Put it in?
Be paid out of there.
no,
It's gonna be paid out of.
But if he's gonna do the project, don't we have to have it in the budget?
Not in this one,
We don't.
no, cause it's getting paid out of the 295 fund.
Okay, so he doesn't have to show it in his budget that he's gonna do it. That just comes magically under that other.
God, I wish I had that to pay
All right.
some input costs.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because typically, even if we're getting outside funding, we have to show it in the budget that it's getting done.
This is different.
Okay, see, that's that, where
No, this is a federal grant, and we haven't even budgeted for the federal grant money that we've received.
so how is, like, his department supposed to anticipate and be able to tell us about it without showing us?
Because he should have this handy dandy little schedule that he made, and it should be on there.
So, John, we have this little pixie dust that's coming
the-
that should cover
this-
some of that stuff.
you're thinking a lot. I mean, it's hard to think about monies that might be available and then
That we can't even
foreseeing it to put it in the budget, or do you put it in the budget?
Wait.
That's conversations I've had with Sherry off and on this last
No,
week.
when you have a federal grant, you do an automatic supplement.
Well,
So
that's,
you
okay.
say, I get $5 million, I'm gonna spend 30,000.
So you show it on here, but put $0.
Well, but, so, let's go back to what the utility budget really is, and that is
Not
the
utility,
actual.
I'm talking about the improvements, the sewer, the water lines that you were talking about before we got in sidetracked by my,
You do want me to include just a $0 thing on here?
just so we show it? Can we, Bill?
That doesn't really go past her, though, you know what I mean?
Well,
Nobody,
we've got, I mean, we need to just, so the public knows that we're trying to do something and we're trying to do it with funding that's not out of the taxpayers.
It
or
will
the-
not be out of this budget.
I know it won't be out of the, that's
Okay.
why we'd put a 0 down for it.
I'm sorry, I got lost, I was talking to Bill.
Yeah, I get lost all the time too.
so,
And I'm the one talking.
You know, in talking to Senator Boland, I mean, too, we may get some kickback from the $88 million that the state has to spend.
So, John, I would have thought.
Might go to counties.
You're right that we had to, because we've always told it's gotta be in the budget, but this is a different program this is new
right, so
for us.
what I'm gonna do is underneath improvements other than, I will put, sewer and water upgrades, 0 then.
$0. I don't know how we do it that way, but just so we have noticed that public knows that we're trying to do something out there.
So let's, if we can, go back to utilities.
Okay. Can you knock that
I'd be
down to
comfortable,
15?
I would be comfortable putting it at 14 or 15 if that's what you want me
Can
to
we
do.
strike it to 15? I mean,
Right.
if you're,
Sorry. My pen doesn't work real well on this ink.
What's
The
the
land, that's written in there as part of the purchase, so that's already, that was part of our payment.
all that payment.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Buildings and structures, another part of the payment, and I don't remember what it was, is that $360. So what I did put in there as, we put in $180 to build the show ring building and hopefully a little maintenance building that I can store equipment in. Not part of the existing ag buildings, and so that's a big question to me is gosh, if money comes in, I really want to build it all next year. But the reality of it is that's the kind of money we have right now.
So this is okay, given that's an outside fund that's coming in for the show ring
Because we counted the, we counted the $180,000 as
as
income.
revenue.
As
as
revenue.
In the
Okay.
general
That they
fund.
have raised, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So, okay, we'll let, go, yes, we'll leave it at that.
So here's your underground utilities.
So now utilities, now, so what
Now, are those?
IMARC is saying,
Are those
or
water?
IMAG, I mean,
Are those water? What are they?
that's all of the, running all the water to the different spigots and more storm drains and all this stuff, they're estimating $80,000.
For like wash racks out
Wash
there.
racks and stuff, yeah.
If that's drainage and that sewer, water, how broad of interpretation can you have to tap some of that government money that's available?
I've had conversation about what your idea was because I'm not really not completely in the loop about it, but the general idea of what, don't look at me like that. The general idea and the state auditor says that would be an option that would probably work for the
Yes.
ARPA money.
All right.
So how do you want to handle
Take
that?
that back off, because we're not gonna expend it?
We have to
We're
have,
not expending it out of the general fund,
we will not function,
yes.
so I think you need to leave that in in this year's budget, because we will not function next year without having those utilities in.
So
It
you
will,
take
it'll,
$100,000 out of the budget, but that $100,000 can be replaced.
But then we go
by
back
the
to the,
government funds that
but
would be
then-
made available to us, correct?
Sure,
So it's an,
I'll swap a
yeah,
room.
right, it's,
it's a swap, right?
right.
Just like we should probably have the sewer all the way from Lennox to get that property fully taken care of.
But that's not
because-
gonna be budgeted out of our
Because
general
we
fund.
got one-time funds that we can use it for.
Right.
It's not gonna be budgeted out of the general fund for that.
Amen. I understand.
So we're
so
leaving the
this
100,000.
100,000 is.
I don't think so, but it's your guys' budget.
John, do we have to figure on removing that one electrical line out there underground in the budget as well, or are we,
No, it'll just come out with the tear out.
we can get that out easy?
But if we spend it out, of if we paid for it. out of
It's
that-
more of an information for them than,
Pay for it out of our general funds.
you know, because once they hit it, I don't want them to hit it thinking they're
I think
hitting
we've
something
already
live.
expended it.
Yeah, and it's not live, right?
Right, right.
So the
So
twen-
I'll
John-
visit with the contractor that gets the
Make sure
bid
we get that
about
straight.
that specifically.
Hi,
John, the $20,000 that you have in there for the horse arena layout, is that gonna be part of the funds that are gonna be donated, so that I need to increase the revenue?
So they do not have right now sitting in a checking account $20,000 to do this horse arena. So this was part of what I was trying to explain to you, right? They're saying they've got a donor that's saying they will pay for it,
pay for the whole thing?
supposedly, or a large portion of it, I don't. I didn't know if I should have it in the budget or not in the budget, because I don't know if they can commit the funds to it till that. So I don't quite understand that.
All I
the
know
accounting
is I
world
support
if-
4-H, although my children never participated. I did not participate in it. It is one of the legacies that this county will hopefully in generations to come look back, go, wow, this was a smart thing to do. And if we don't follow through with it, they're not gonna have that opportunity.
So
I think we need to keep it in there, get it done.
But do you have $20,000 worth of revenue coming for it?
I don't know.
so
We
that-
won't know until that check gets written.
Do we
And-
anticipate having the $20,000?
Well, that's what they're telling us.
Then we need to count the revenue in on the revenue side. Just like we did the 100.
I don't know how we can count revenue that's I hope to send you money.
But we're not gonna spend the money unless they give it to us.
Is that true?
Isn't that
Gentlemen?
true, John?
I don't know.
Yes, that's true.
This is a
That's
new
what we
path
have
for
to
me.
decide.
What?
I don't understand the accounting world at that. I get confused with her when she starts explaining what
The
revenues
point,
are.
how many more years do we want to continue to bounce back and forth between Canton and Lennox? We've made a commitment to
Well,
Lennox.
we're gonna get that grounds taken care of, period.
So
That's
then
gonna
we
be-
leave it in the budget,
Yes.
irrelevant to the revenue.
So again, we'll leave it in the budget, Cherry, and if you'll put revenues of an additional $20,000 over.
Period.
All right.
Move on.
Okay. So furniture, minor equipment, I put that at $17,000. I believe we're gonna need a commercial grade mower especially that particular piece of ground over there needs to have a commercial grade mower. The mower that I bought a few years ago was light commercial, heavy residential. It's just showing its wear already. So that's about $12,000. And again, about $5,000 for miscellaneous tools and equipment. I will not spend that money unless I need to spend that money, but it's obviously gotta be in the budget.
John, have the 4-H leaders ever discussed, and what's our current price? We mow out there all the time and always have.
Oh, yeah. Before I came here, it used to get mowed like once a month, and then they were always playing catch up to try to get it. They were, but that out there, honestly, I'm really, really hoping that January 1st, that goes back to the city of Canton. That is, as soon as we are committed, I should say January 1st, as soon as we accept a bid on the show ring building and we know that's gonna happen next year, then I say we end that contract with the city of Canton. Cause there was a lot of 4-H parents that wanted to have it all at Lennox this year. We just didn't know how to do it safely.
All right, what else, John?
That's it for me.
Jerry, we got any questions for John yet?
Nope.
Board, any questions for John?
Nope.
Now we get to go into the canvas. Yay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay.
We can't,
No, you're doing the canvas. You have to do the canvas.
We gotta do the canvas, Michael.
this won't take long. 1,200 votes.
Only have 1,200 votes.
I would ask.
You need a motion?
No, I guess not. She said no.
You just go through these. Don't push your luck.
Okay, I'm not sure what I'm doing.
So we had 1,243 votes, so 2.95% turnout.
Is that by far the lowest ever?
Could be, yes.
Okay, we break the seal now, we can do that.
Yeah, do you have a letter opener in
No,
your
I
drawer?
don't.
Does Sean have one in his drawer?
Think they have one in her.
Yep, here's a letter opener.
You got a letter opener.
Okay, break the.
Jim, do you need one?
Yes, I do.
Here,
Okay.
No, we're not.
Hi.
okay.
What do you want to know?
You want to know if we're in recess?
No.
Oh, no, we're gonna get through this.
For some reason, this doesn't have to get signed.
You saying that?
When I hit my precinct at 10:30, I was number one.
Yeah, there was only 2 voters after you.
In that whole precinct.
Yeah, they sat there all day.
Yep, we had 2 precincts, or 1 precinct that did not have 1 voter turnout.
That machine works very well, by the way. That updated thing.
Yes, it does. The full pad?
Yep, I like that.
Okay,
No, I think, Jim, did you find one?
Yeah, we're splitting.
Here, is that you?
Do we have to sign, we don't have to sign anything, do we? Huh? Okay. Here we go.
so what do we check?
Well, you
Verify
check,
your numbers.
you check by the numbers. You gotta find somebody, you gotta find something, Jim, that, where they voted. Okay, 23 here was Bonnie, and check over 23 here. Who wrote that?
Yeah.
What's her name?
Morris Bonnie.
Yep, there it is. You check a couple of those.
33. Okay, all right,
And then that's all.
that's it.
That's it.
Then
just
you go to the next one?
You validated that,
Okay, do we sign
consistency,
anything then?
and you look at the total.
Mhm.
Did they give you a total?
Yeah.
On that sheet here.
Yeah.
That's,
And then the total on this sheet, okay?
they're all. It's,
We don't have anything set.
we have never,
Okay,
I don't know that we've ever
all right,
found.
and then everything goes back
We've
into
never-
the thing again, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, and this is what you will sign.
Okay, for each one or just,
Nope, it's just one.
okay,
One and done.
okay.
One and
So when
done.
you're done looking, then we'll take the.
All of this
Are
goes
you done
back,
with this
Yep,
one?
I'm done with that one.
okay, all of this goes back in here. Okay, here's this one.
Oh, Jim, I got my own. You got, there you go.
Is that mine or yours?
That's yours, right
Okay.
there. We're both, you said there were two precincts that didn't have any voters?
I think, no, there was just one, Sioux Falls 113 had no voters,
No voters.
not a single one.
Wow. This one with 12.
Yeah, there's 3 total precincts at Central Church, and I think one of them had 0, one had 1, and the other one had 5.
Poll book. Envelope, okay. Seven. Okay, so here we have 5 voters. What? Total votes cast, 7. There must have been 2 absentees then.
Now, I will have, the folks in T that use the poll pad. I'm going to have them come out and talk to you about their feelings about them. When do we think we wanna have a discussion about that again?
Was it not favorable?
Oh, no, it was very good.
Very good.
As a matter,
I mean,
as a matter of fact, we can actually get revenue off of them, because I think the cities might want to
use them.
rent them from us.
Well,
I've
that's,
already got that indication from Dawn that she would,
do you need as many poll workers if you use that?
yes,
Same amount?
yes, well,
I think it will kind of depend on how we choose to use them. If we use them in the way that me and Sherry would like to use them, I think we should be able to reduce it. Some, it won't be a significant reduction of people, but it would probably be a few here and there, especially in Sioux Falls.
the nicest thing about them was we, when we were discussing it with the poll workers that were using them, is she's like, oh, we're not gonna have to call you. And I'm like, oh yeah, think about that. We get, I don't know, during the last general election, we were missing calls, cause we were getting so many calls about people being in the wrong place.
Sean, did we handle setting the, wasn't it setting appraisers or something on the agenda? Did we handle that?
Nope, me and you are gonna go look at that
Okay.
piece of land.
No,
This
oh,
one
there
is-
was, that was the
Sheet
one.
number
Yeah.
4,
I
sheet
was thinking there
number
was
4,
something we
okay.
had to deal with.
They match.
Number 1. We had 1.
I thought you guys did that.
Okay,
That was
now this one is okay.
the NAI.
That was the NAI, but did we, I thought we had to.
All right, this
No.
one is good.
See
This
that
goes
underneath
back
it that we were doing our appraisal.
in there.
For that parcel.
Yeah.
We had 1.
That part's
Okay,
Teresa,
and then this was this one, correct?
yep, Teresa,
Thank you.
The nice thing about having this non-bid given election is Kayla and I got an opportunity to go out and actually see the setups of the polling places.
Yep.
And see the precinct workers.
21
was-
voters.
you know, the one that's in the Baptist church is really a nice facility. Yeah, very nice.
Okay.
One gentleman I got a kick out of, he said, I said, do you get a chance to have a break? He said, This day will be one big break.
That must have been Jim.
Why does it say 6:11 PM?
It's just funny.
Apparently that's what time they voted,
Oh,
or that's when their last voter was.
so there were 6 total votes today.
Okay,
I'll look right away and see if B, Toby Brown.
Mr. Melinda Coffee.
There was a couple things that he wants, but the, NEI.
Toby Brown, yep.
Okay, all right, number
Looks
1,
legit.
Melinda, number 2, and I took care of that.
Goes back in here.
Mark that.
Right, here's that one.
That Rogers, he never left. What I am ecstatic about though.
This is probably it.
Who's coming back this year?
Randall Cobb.
Who's he?
Who is he? A very good running back with Green Bay.
Oh, Green Bay. Oh, they're talking Packers.
Yeah.
Vikings are supposed to have a good team this year.
They say that every year. Shortly after the first game, they just deflate it.
It's about like twins.
6, okay.
Shung, boy, we set a record here. We had, this must have been worthy.
All right, so tip him
Yep.
up about signing that.
Yeah, this is worthy. This is worthy. They had 221. Well, let's go with the sweeter. So let's see, we got here 209.
So which one did nobody show up?
209.
Sioux Falls,
Ashley.
113.
Yep, and 117 is,
Which area is that? That's all right, I don't need to know.
Yep,
I
good.
was gonna say, I would have to look, that's
Yeah,
one of the
that's-
only ones, I think it's
I think it would be west of the interstate.
How do you want them to look through the?
22.
Same way. I mean, they should be
Compare, just count the number of receipts
Yeah.
compared to the number of ballots.
Yeah. We should have the,
The receipts are in this one for sure.
You know, there's a lot of questions on the interpretation of that ballot.
yep,
There's always is.
yep.
14. Circuit.
Oh, that's one of the ones we use full packet, so there should be really no receipts in your envelope.
Please don't joke.
Okay.
Okay, so do I need to go through and?
Yep, just count how many of those receipts are there.
76. 6.
And there's most likely a couple of
Here you are. There's that one.
Probably not.
This goes together, these two? Okay. All right. 14.
There's 34, 34.
13, but then cancel. This holiday. We have 14 total.
74 is,
No, they don't have to. There's not gonna be.
very good. There you are.
Oh, two of them were absentee.
So where would the blue sheet go then? Oh, you have it.
Yeah, two of them are absentees, so that's why there's 14.
Okay. Let's try.
Yeah, they would just go in with the election information that we store. We'll have these ballot sheets. I don't know, I would have to figure that out, but I think that we're gonna have the ballot count sheet and the summary report. And I think we'll probably actually have a report also that we're gonna print off.
The question is, what do we actually look at?
We'll look at the ballot count on the blue sheet.
There you are, Jim L. Schmidt, you voted.
Yes, I did.
There you are, I can approve it.
I did vote. I think I voted it.
You were the first one.
It's gonna be an easy one. Here's your 0 vote.
There you go. There you go, Jeff.
Wow.
What a waste of time and money. I mean, these poor people, I really felt sorry for them. They're dedicated individuals. They're very serious about that. They
I
take,
just felt bad for when we walked in and they got so excited. Their eyes lit up like, oh, we have voters, and then they realized it was us.
And it was like,
no, they,
Yeah.
and but they're so serious to do everything just to the, you know, I was the only person there and talked to them. Can I see your identification? Handed it to them. It was okay.
What do we pay, like 175 a day?
175
Yeah.
for deputy and then 200 for the
Yeah.
superintendent of
Yep.
that precinct.
Yep.
we've got a, quick estimate, this election was about $40,000.
For cost? Okay.
53.
So it wasn't as bad as what we thought.
I don't know, yeah, I'm not sure where that 70 came from,
Um,
cause I don't know.
Probably,
All I can tell you is this one was 40.
probably me. I just threw a number out.
That would sound about right.
You don't have to agree with me.
I know I don't have to, but it's easy.
17 and 8. Okay, I finally found 17. Linda and. Yep, Orville. There we go. Just to make sure.
Okay, Paul Sleason. Let's check.
Hey, FYI, don't say names out on the microphone, who's voted.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me, Orville. I didn't mean to. Didn't give his last name. Oh, wait a minute. There you go. That sheet. Sarah.
Yep, Paul Sleason. Okay. Yep.
Somebody what? I know, I like it. Cause they have to count them too.
53,
That's
that's
it,
right.
So when that gets printed out, where does that go? Where does they just put that in a box?
There you are.
Well, they have a spindle there.
Is that it?
Put it on top of there, and then they count them. we do the absentee one already?
But you have to check your test.
I don't know. I just put it in there.
Can you imagine being a state of Georgia? How many times did they redo that? 3 times? 4 times? What was it? Crazy.
And they never did find anything.
Seems a little ironic, just about majority of them have 2 absentees.
It is.
Done.
Should be it.
Yes.
I just need your signature on the.
We gotta sign something.
Sign, just that top one. You were done with this one, correct, Jen?
Yep, that's all.
This is. Board, I'm signing as chairman for these documents they need.
Yes.
Okay.
You are the chair. Well, you know, and that's protocol. Like usually when they pass chairs around, you pass chair, you refer back to that position. I didn't mean to, you know, insist.
Okay, so I think the last order of business then.
Yep.
Perfect, I'll have you sign that.
Look for a motion to adjourn if we are all done.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Commissioner Gibbon,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.